What is happening out there, Roto Scouts baseball fans? Welcome to the show, gang. A little Monday action to get the week started. Great looking slate lined up tonight. Looking forward to this one. We've got some good pitching. We've got some great hitting spots. Got some weather warming up all around the country. Stormy in New York today, but sunny day, if you catch my drift. Interesting day across the world, but we've got a lot of baseball to talk about. We've got 9 games on the slate today on both sites, starting up at 7:07 start. Nice casual start. No basketball to worry. Excuse me. No basketball to worry about tonight, so we can take our time with this one. Getting started at 3:30. Got a lot to get through. Pretty successful weekend. No crazy wins, but profitable days. Felt the content was on point over the weekend. We nailed a bunch of the home run picks on Saturday. We got the overall home run pick on both Saturday and Sunday. All over those slates. So I'm feeling good about this one too. We'll take a deep look in it. When I pull up the stats, we might see very extraordinarily minor, like talking about like 1/100th of a point changes for some of the hitters. I just did a quick update on the run lines in the back end that hasn't gone up to the site yet. But it should be so small as to be completely not even noticeable unless you're sitting there literally checking every single player down to the 100th of a point. But if you spot anything, that's why. We'll get started up here in just a sec, but let me say hi to everybody. Cujo's here, hoping everybody's having a good Monday. Right back at you, pal. Good to see you. Lone Wolf's here. Pinstripe Pimp is here. Edward B. from Burgo in North Carolina. Whereabouts in North Carolina is that, Edward? Is that over near the coast? Is that like near the Outer Banks and stuff? Or is that more inland North Carolina? Where you at? Can't say that I've ever heard of Burgo. Been down there a few times, though. I like North Carolina. Pretty state. TGHH is here. Trey's here. 8-game. Pink hand wave back to you, 8-game. Andy Melman. Trey's tuning in from work. Say hi to everybody around the office, Trey. Let me just see what is being sent to me. Hello to the person who's text messaging me while they're watching me on the show. Let's get this thing rolling. Devin Scott's here. What's up, Dev? Good to see you, buddy. So like I said, really interesting slate. Seriously, like very nice days all around the country. Warming up and should be some primed hitting environments. Let me double check our weather conditions, but I don't think we've got anything concerning. Yeah, maybe a little yellow here in the New York area for a non-jokey storminess, but we're talking about... Why does he even have this yellow? According to Mr. Roth, the Pirates game might have a little threat of yellow for later weather, but looking at the numbers, it's an 8% chance of precipitation. I'm going to say we're pretty fine across the board. It's like an 80-degree day here in the New York area, so really nice hitting conditions just kind of around the league. A lot of good spots. Some very good matchups lined up. We'll take a look at the Vegas board first. Get us up and running here. Yanks at Toronto. 8.5 run total there. Kind of even up. 4.25 implied total for the Yanks. 4.34 on the other side for the Blue Jays. Yanks facing Chris Bassett. Heel going for the Yankees. Kind of an interesting pitching matchup. I could see getting to both sides of that. I can definitely see drawing some Yankees bats against Bassett. It seems like a spot where the Yanks could definitely crack through and succeed. We all know that Bassett typically good for a few runs, and the Yanks good at extracting those runs. He's also been putting some guys on base a little bit, which the Yanks are good at exploiting. So could be a spot for some Yankees bats, despite kind of a pedestrian total, given their where they've been and how good they've been to start the season. The Pirates in New York to face the Mets. Another game not all that crazy. 109 Mets 118 favorites. 4.15 implied total for the Pirates, 4.44 implied total for the Mets, 8.5 runs in the game. Padres and the Brewers, another close one, 4.19 for the Pods, 4.40 for the hometown Brewers, slightly favored. We'll see. I'm expecting there to be no Christian Yelich again for the Brew Crew. Should be an interesting one. The Royals against the White Sox. Royals pretty strong favorites there, 4.53. Royals kind of on a little bit of a roll, probably without Sal Perez tonight, which kind of sucks. He took a shot yesterday and is down with hip and groin issues, I want to say. I benched him for the week in the season-long league, but in the Dynasty League, rather. But fortunately, I have MJ on that team, and he's got catcher eligibility in Yahoo, so we just steam ahead. But I love Sal. They're gonna miss him if he's out for any extended period. One of the key bats in that offense, and I like the Royals side of that game. They're going up against a kid making his debut for the season, so looks like a pretty strong spot for Kansas City. Only 8 runs is kind of surprising there. I would think that might have pushed up a little higher than that, but Kansas City getting the bulk of them. Great game up on between the Braves and the Astros. 10.5 run total, easily leads the slate. 5.40 on the Atlanta side, 5.22 on the Astros side. Tons and tons of offense on both sides of that one. We'll talk about the pitching when we get there, but it's not going to be a strong consideration. St. Louis at Oakland. St. Louis heavily favored. Looks like a good spot for hitting. Looks like a playable spot for pitching. It's tough with Sonny Gray. He's limited to 75 pitches again today. He was limited the last time out, but it got him through 5 innings. He qualified for the bonus and had a pretty decent game. Tricky. The Athletics have been a little bit frisky. They've been a little bit of a spoiler early in the season, but they're checking in with just a 3.23 implied total. St. Louis on the other side, 4.35. Like a couple of the power bats in that game to succeed in this spot. They're a team we're going to keep getting drawn to. They've got good bats. They've got good players down lineup. They're typically affordable. They get into these spots where it's like, yeah, that's a St. Louis total in a game where they're really favored. 4.35 doesn't really feed the engine for run creation, run scoring. It looks like a game where St. Louis will end up winning 5-2 and not be all that crazy for DFS, but they're going to consistently show quality when it comes to projections and stacking and evaluating these things. So hopefully this is the year where they succeed, because we do end up on them a decent amount. Stat correction increased 8 games profit from the early showdown slate. Anyone know what it was? Didn't see it, don't know, but congratulations, buddy. That's great. Profit's always good, and increased profits from stat corrections always the way you want to be going. Yes, Christopher calling out that it's the, I should be saying the first place Kansas City Royals, of course. I tell you, I don't dislike their chances if they can, obviously, as long as Sal's not on the shelf for any extended period, I think they're right there in that division. I don't dislike this. We've talked about this lineup a lot. They need to pad it out a little bit still. They're not, they're not the Orioles in terms of teams with young talent, but they're not bad. And they've got some okay pitchers at worst. Pretty weak division. I kind of like the Royals here. Steven Leibowitz is here. What's up, buddy? I'm just ecstatic. Ignore me. Nah, I think it's good cause. I'd be happy if I was a Royals fan. I mean, happier than a lot of Royals seasons. Let's put it that way. Right? You're not dealing with, you don't have the Dodgers on your hands, but I think they're a competitive, fun team all year. I think they're fun to watch too. Like, they've played some exciting games. They still have, we talked about it in the show the other day, they still have pieces of that station to station approach, but they've padded it out nicely with some lethal power now. They've got some young, interesting bats on both sides. So really exciting player in Bobby Witt. So I like what they're doing. Anyway, major target for bats in Braves and Astros. Cards on Cardinal side of that game. Definitely looking at some bats. I think Sonny Gray is in play. We'll get to that spot. Oakland a lot less so. Next game up, the Cubbies at Arizona. Another interesting one. Tricky spot for Merrill Kelly, the Arizona starting pitcher. Going to be interesting to see what he does here. He's very, very good. He looks like a good option on this slate, but the Cubbies are tough. 4.19 implied total for Chicago, 4.91 for Arizona. Cincinnati going against Seattle. 3.23 implied total for the Reds, just a 7-run total for that game overall. On the Mariners side, 3.85 implied total. Really light-looking spot. George Kirby's been a little bit up and down to start the season, so maybe you get away with Cincinnati bats, but they're drawing really dead here at 3.23. A lot of strikeouts on deck in that lineup, so it's going to be an interesting one to talk through when we get there. And then the Dodgers, biggest favorite, I'm pretty sure that we've seen all season so far at minus 360. Tyler Glasnow on the hill, easily the best starter of the day. The Dodgers pulling in a 5.69 implied total against a kid making his debut for Washington. 2.95 run implied total for the Nats. Outside of the most contrarian for the hell of being contrarian approach, you probably don't want Nats bats in this spot. Very, very low implied total. Try saying that the NL is all wrapped up by the Dodgers with Strider done. We'll see. It's a long season, a lot of baseball to be played. Dodgers could take a run of injuries. Their pitching might not hold up for one thing. Braves can always go shopping for pitching. It's probably a willing partner in Miami if the Marlins want a deal in division. There's a lot of pitchers down there once they get healthy. But there are pitchers to be had around the league. I wouldn't be worried about Atlanta, and you got to keep in mind for Atlanta, like Acuna hasn't even gotten going yet. Spoiling what we're going to talk about in a minute. Acuna's at 273, 385, 327, just a .055 ISO. He hasn't homered yet. 104 WRC plus still. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't be writing those Braves off, but they definitely need help on the mound. Diamondbacks are frisky. Let's see, who else? The Padres, I don't know that the Pods have enough. Cubs are going to be good all year. I'm just running through contenders in my head. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to argue with the Dodgers there. You get a lot for spending that much money. They're pretty elite. Anyway, we'll start us out. We'll take a look at the pitching board, which is not sorted yet. Do it by DraftKings. All right. So a couple of quick nuances. Mitchell Parker is the kid pitching for the Nationals. Lefty costs $4,000 on the DraftKings slate. He's one of those value plays, and we'll get into it a little bit. Doesn't really project well. I wouldn't be going to that spot, even for the $4,000. I just don't think it's there. Those are trappy a lot of the time. We've already seen it fail pretty spectacularly a couple times. He's not on the FanDuel slate at all. I had to put him in, so that's why you're seeing a projection for him and a projection for Nick Nastrini. I had to put them in so that the teams could project against them. But Nick Nastrini, the kid making his debut for the White Sox, not on either slate, at least as of when I put the salaries in. So you can safely ignore him, but these are live projections for these guys. So if they happen to drop into the slate on, especially Nastrini on either site, you can consider those the effective projections. A tickle in my throat. Can't get rid of it. Anyway, top of the board, Tyler Glasnow, earning the $11,000 on either site. I think he's totally worth going to here. Nats are not a low strikeout bunch so far. They're at like mid-20s for strikeouts on the season already. Tyler Glasnow has been elite for strikeouts. He is one of the pure best pitchers in all of baseball. So, excuse me. Great. I'm coughing. I punched the mic. Can you guys hear me? Somebody give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Yeah, Sean, I wish. You can't hear me. All right, good. I don't know why the microphone lights changed color. All right, I appreciate it. Thanks, Stephen. I appreciate that. No, and I laughed before it, like something, just a little spit or whatever, I guess, caught in my throat. Just has been tickling me, but I think I'm good now. at least for the moment. Let's keep on going. So Glass now looks great off the top of the board. Easily the highest projection. I think it's worth paying the premium to get to that high projection. Just stands head and shoulders above everybody else. Kirby's been a little bit bumpy to start the season. Projects out great. Cincinnati has a ton of strikeouts in that lineup. There's a low total in that game. I think he is a good spot. It's a somewhat pitcher-friendly park. So I think you can go to Kirby, and I have faith in the talent. I think he'll be fine. But it's not the spot that Glasnow against the Nationals is. Sonny Gray, probably not enough innings to really justify shares, especially at 9,700 where you really want to book that quality start. This one is a... Oh, wait, no, sorry. Fuck, that's off. I got to fix that. This is one of those ones I mentioned it the other day, and I didn't catch it when I put it up. Darius Vine should not be. He should be at like 8. Fix that. Let me fix that real quick. The back end projections has something in here, and it was supposed to catch it. He's projected for seeing 24 games, but 0 starts. So there's a check against how many starts he's projected to make. I'm just going to give him 12 for the moment just to feed it something. And that should fix. Yeah, there you go. Now that it knows that he's a starter and to consider him a starter. So that was, this is about where he should be. Apologies for that. Let me fix it on the site real quick. Glad I saw that now, not minutes before lock. So just a quirk in how the projections table works to determine pitchers. All right, so this becomes 18.68 FanDuel 9.18. That sounds right. All right, and I got to check my rule there because I won't do that now. But something was in there that's supposed to catch that now, and it didn't. Doesn't seem to have worked. Action. All right. I do not, for the record, think that Darius Vines is a good idea. Since you're watching me fix this now. All right. We're updated on the site, and we're back in business. So Vines dips way down the board. Would not be playing either side of that. Spencer Arrigetti's probably going to be a disaster against the Braves. We saw how bad he was in his debut. And Darius Vines going up against the Astros, especially at 7,800 on the DraftKings slate, just really not a value option at all. Sonny Gray is where I think I left off before. I just don't think there's enough innings. It's a 75 pitch limit. We'll talk about the game he had to start things off. Seth Lugo does look like a good spot against the White Sox. That lineup is just a total disaster right now. We're just going to be targeting them again and again and again, and probably even when Lubob and if he comes back, Eloy Jimenez come back. It's just a really dead lineup in Chicago. So I think Lugo's in play. 9,600 is a big price tag, though. You're paying a matchup tax on FanDuel for Lugo tonight. 8,400 on DraftKings, a lot more playable. Frankie Montas could definitely benefit from all the strikeouts that we've seen from Seattle so far. That lineup has been atrocious. I'm kind of patting myself on the back for the read that lineup might not be very good. They've just been bad and totally justified that take. I think they're better than they've been, obviously. But the idea that that's a top-end lineup out west is problematic at best. And Montas could benefit. I don't love the starter, but he projects out fairly well. He's 9,000 on both sides. So like a solid mid-range option, especially if you're building a full portfolio of lineups. I think Joe Musgrove on FanDuel is very cheap for his talent. 8,300 for Joe Musgrove. Against a capable but not great Brewers lineup, especially if there's no Yelich. I like that spot. I have a lot of faith in Joe Musgrove. 86 on DraftKings is a different price point, but still very effective over there. Merrill Kelly, I referred to this before. You can see where it's a little problematic. Just going up against a really good Chicago lineup has him down a couple of points from where he might be against 20 of the other teams in baseball. So like the 10,000 is not unjustifiable for him. He's a talented guy. He's been pitching very well. 9-4 on DraftKings. I think this is a little bit more playable. This is just a tough price. I would have some across 150 lineups. I would definitely have some Merrill Kelly here. My expectation is that he won't be all that popular. So I think you benefit from that. And if you pay the tax, you gain that at least. But his projection's down. He would be in the 30s FanDuel wise. He'd be 15 plus on the DraftKings scale in a lot of matchups. These two guys kind of align right next to each other in their matchup. I think it's kind of a four corners game where you can probably get away with Luis Gil against an underperforming Toronto team. You just need him to get through 5. Chris Bassett on the other side, it's the opposite situation where I would expect him to pitch into the 7th inning or 6. 6 is on the board most starts for Chris Bassett, and then he gains ground, especially if he gives up a few early runs by typically working deep. It's just he's got to face that Yankees lineup. But both those guys are in play at respectable prices. I think Joe Ross is kind of interesting. 74, 73. He's in that value tier. Not a bad option. He isn't a great starter, but he projects out okay against the top-heavy Padres lineup, or improving but still kind of top-heavy Padres lineup. Ben Brown is kind of a tough ask for the same reason as Merrill Kelly, but to more extreme because we don't have the track record with Ben Brown. Going up against a really good Diamondbacks lineup, I don't really like that spot. Not on the slate. I think Martin Perez is playable for 8,000, 7,600. Not my favorite FanDuel option, but at 76 on DK, you could probably get away with that spot. Adrian Hauser, less so. Projects very, very similarly for 500 less against a Pittsburgh lineup that I actually think is pretty good. Some people are saying overperforming so far. I think they continue this, and I think they're actually going to be pretty decent through the season. Not great, but like step forward kind of a sense. So some playability here, and then the bottom, I wouldn't play those guys. So it's a deep pitching slate if you're willing to embrace some risk in like the mid-range of quality. Right? Like these guys should have been included in that. Nobody's really saying that these guys are great options. But for price on a slate like this, I think all these guys are in play, especially at SP2 on DraftKings. It's a deep SP2 board. Let's get into some game by game. Joker's here saying hi. The hell did the too many tabs? Oh, I'm dumb. That's what I wanted. Yanks, Blue Jays. Blue Jays lineups confirmed. See if we have the Yankees yet. Doesn't look like. All right, buddy. Go lay down. Oh, actually, we got Royals. No Sal for the Royals. Jankowski hitting second for Texas. So, no Seager today. Downgrade for Texas. Doesn't make the Houston pitcher any more interesting. Oh, that's not the matchup. That's Atlanta and Houston. Never mind. Anyway, all right. So, Chris Bassett, let's talk there. 22.7% strikeout rate, kind of in line with expectations. He's thrown 16 innings in his 3 starts. Walking 12% is pretty high for Chris Bassett. He's allowed a lot of premium contact in the tiny sample. 5.06 ERA with a 4.59 xFIP. Over time, 200 innings last year, basically the exact same strikeout rate. Walks were way lower than what they've been so far this season. The ERA and the run numbers were better. Gave up a little bit of premium contact, but the hard hits weren't out of control. The exit velo was under control. 3.39% home runs on 8.3% barrels. Like I said, typically Bassett's just going to give you innings. He's a bit of an innings eater, and he can make up ground. Where like he gives up 2 runs early or 3 runs early, as long as there's nothing tragic, he can typically find a few extra points, get you to bonuses if it's a good game for his team and they win. But you need those things to click, obviously. He was kind of on form the last time out, 6 2/3, struck out 8, only allowed 1 run to the Mariners. He walked 4 in that game, which is kind of messy, especially against a free swinging team like that. But that also might have just been pitches out of the zone chasing swings. So the 6 2/3 is great to see. The 8 Ks, that's just kind of a good example of, not enigmatic. The hell's the word I want? It's a good example of how Seattle can just kind of feed strikeouts to pitchers, though. Overall, I think we can definitely chase the walks, especially with this patient Yankees team that sees so many pitches, that works walks as just part of their overall program, that has power against, that can exploit some of the premium contact that he's allowed. So I think I come down fairly firmly on the Yankees side, but given the projection and the pricing, 8,200 on either site, the track record that we've got of success, I think you can roll the dice with Chris Bassett. Just know who you're buying. He's not nearly the best starter on the slate from a talent perspective. He's going up against a potentially pretty lethal lineup. I expect that at least like this part of the Yankees lineup will be intact from Verdugo up, and then John Birdie got put on the IL, so it's almost definitely going to be Osvaldo Cabrera, and then we'll see what we get at catcher between Austin Wells and Jose Trevino. Probably going to be Wells to get the lefty bat in there, but he's been really weak to start the season. He's a good bat coming up through the system. He hit 4 home runs in 75 plate appearances and a cup of coffee last year, 257 ISO. Had a matching on-base percentage at 257, which wasn't great. Just a 97 WRC plus in the tiny sample, but they like him to hit. Just needs to kind of find his footing in the show. Hasn't been successful so far this year, basically at all, with a 28 WRC plus. Glaber is the only other player in the Yankees projected lineup who's been below average for run creation so far at a 64 WRC plus. He's yet to homer. He's only stolen 3 bases. I mean, stealing those 3 bases is like the only thing that he's done, is what I'm trying to say. 203, 297, 234. I like Glaber to flip the switch anytime now and start hitting. It's just a little bit of a slow start over 75 plate appearances. Disappointing after a great year last year, but makes him cheap, 4,700, 2,800. Hitting between Stanton and Verdugo down there. It's not a bad spot in the lineup, hitting 6th behind all those guys. I don't mind it. I like Glaber hitting leadoff better, but that spot belongs to Anthony Volpe now. Talked about it the day they moved him up. Didn't like the idea that, hey, hot start, let's move the kid right into the leadoff spot and see what he does. But he's continued the success, so can't really complain about it. Totally different hitter at the plate this year. He's looked fantastic. 382, 477, 564 to start the season. He's creating runs 107% better than average. 2 homers, 5 steals, 14 runs scored in 66 plate appearances. Now he's hitting ahead of Soto and Judge, which is the most enviable spot in all of baseball probably. Not a bad situation for the kid. He's still 4,500 at shortstop on DraftKings. That's way too cheap. 3,500 on FanDuel is more appropriate. Makes him a little bit harder to reach, but especially when you're getting Rizzo at 2,700, it just averages that right back down. If you don't want to go to Rizzo, Stanton does the same thing at 23, Glaber at 28. The Yankees are surprisingly affordable. Their value numbers come out pretty well. Just given like Stanton, despite a strong start to the season, not even a $5,000 player yet. Glaber under 4,000 or under 5,000 at 4,700. Anthony Rizzo under 4,000 and Volpe at 45. It doesn't really matter that these two cost 61 and 62, which are the correct prices for Juan Soto and Aaron Judge. And yes, despite Judge's cold start to the season, still a 241 ISO, 3 home runs, getting on base at a 373 clip, drawing a 21.3% walk rate. Having these walk rates, it's kind of ridiculous back to back. 2 guys walking at a 20% clip who don't really strike out that much and hit for a ton of power. It's unfair. Rizzo, people are asking a little bit about some questions about his timing still. I've talked about it on the early shows because he's supposed to be fully healthy coming into the year. Been a few weird plays at first base that people are focused on, like timing plays, scooping the ball out of the dirt. The power hasn't really been there yet this year, just 1 home run. But 274, 357, 355, creating runs 15% better than average. Pretty solid lefty bat for 3,900, 2,700. He's very cheap. He basically for his career has averaged 30 plus home runs. So at this point, I'm not questioning it. You saw the impact really, it won in the power department, but it primarily came in his ability to just put bat on ball last year when his timing was all screwed up from the concussion. The fact that he's out of the gate hitting 274, getting on base at a 357 clip, effectively putting bat on ball, I'm not as concerned. 20% strikeouts is in line, so something to keep an eye on for sure. But I'm not really that concerned. You get the lefty bat in Yankee Stadium. Verdugo out to a 112 WRC plus, but just 218, 333, 382. 2 home runs, kind of a mixed bag, but definitely playable at 3,400, 2,600, and gives you another lefty bat in Yankee Stadium. Focus bats are 1 through 6. Really, you could shorten that to 1 through 5, but I throw Glaber in there because I believe, and he's very, very cheap at a premium second base. But overall, Yankee stack is in play. The Blue Jay stack is a lot shorter. We've talked about it a bunch of times already. The pricing is down for these guys. George Springer for just $46.32. Vladdy at $5,035 across sites. Bo Bichette, $4,900, $3,200. These guys are cheap, but they're kind of cheap for a reason. Vladdy's exactly at league average for run creation over 72 plate appearances, below the Mendoza line. 3 home runs, just a 306 on base. George Springer, 99 WRC plus. Bichette, 81 WRC plus. 6 home runs combined for the 3 of them. Springer slashing 222, 319, 349. Bichette, 214, 279, 339. Justin Turner's been this team's best player, and it's not even close. Turner's been 116% better than average for run creation so far. He's got a home run on the board. He's slashing 386, 481, 614 with a 227 ISO. 13% strikeout rate, 14.8% walk rate for Justin Turner. It's a pretty killer start to the season for the old man. He's still cheap. 4,200 first base, third base, 3,300 first base, third base. Can't do it all by himself, though. Kevin Biggio's been a little bit interesting. 310, 396, 429 with a 147 WRC plus, a homer and a steal. Left-handed hitter with multi-position for cheap pricing in Yankee Stadium, giving you second base and outfield. I can make an argument for playing Kevin Biggio at cheap pricing. Biggio, Turner are okay 4-5. The top 3 are definitely targetable despite the slow starts. You just keep going back there and you enjoy the cheap pricing while they're cheap. But the bottom of this lineup, Alejandro Kirk, Dalton Varsho, 2 guys who are defense-first players, I really don't like. And especially the fact that like all those guys are out to pretty weak starts. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa has been the best hitter in that group. He's got a 131 WRC plus, 295, 354, 432, a homer, a steal. He's very cheap if you want to go there. Not my cup of tea by any stretch. 2,500 multi-position on DraftKings, 2,400 with 4 positions on FanDuel. FanDuel has 4 positions on a number of guys. There are more interesting guys. Yeah, they are playing in Toronto. I don't know why I said at Yankee Stadium several times there, Ashish. Thank you for that. This is definitely in Toronto. The bottom team is always the one that's at home, just for reference. Ignore that. Slipped up there. But getting a lefty in this ballpark is also good. But yes, they're not in Yankee Stadium. Thank you for that. And then Luis Hill on the other side. We didn't talk about Luis Hill. A lot of good stuff. He's kind of interesting. I'm really curious to see if he can maintain any of this hot start. He's been short-started both times. 4 2/3 in his first start, gave up 1 earned run and just 1 hit against Arizona. Pretty impressive. He struck out 6, which is also impressive against that team. He walked 3, not great. That's been his hiccup early. Next start, struck out 8, walked 4, gave up 2 earned runs on 2 hits and 4 1/3 against this Toronto team. So, given the fact that we could probably see similar strikeout upside, need him to pitch a little bit cleaner in terms of the walks. But 8,400 with some strikeout upside, 7,400 on DraftKings. I need 5 innings from him. It's a little bit more problematic on FanDuel where you don't get the shot at the quality start if he's not working into the 6th. On DraftKings at 74 though, given a little bit of strikeout upside, the back end of this lineup not great at limiting strikeouts. The top end, even with their struggles, has been terrific at limiting strikeouts. But he found success against this team already. If he can manage to not walk the world, the 18.4% walk rate has been a real issue, but just a 3 ERA, a 4.05 xFIP, hasn't given up any power, no barrels yet on the season in 2 starts. Just need more innings. So I'm a little bit intrigued. It's more of a DraftKings play at 74. 84, a little bit challenging with no quality start bonus on FanDuel. He is cheap. I could see him cracking 30. I don't see him going up to competitive with Glasnow kind of levels, and Glasnow and a number of other guys. So it's kind of a 4-corner spot. I think you can play either pitcher, more so on DraftKings for both guys. I think you can play either lineup, but I greatly favor the Yankee side. It's just the much better organization. It is a much better organization, but it's the much better lineup right now. The Blue Jays are extremely top heavy. 1 through 5 is really the play if you're going to Blue Jays bats against Luis Hill. I think you can justify that for sure, especially with the discounted price. Let's get off this game, which again does not take place in Yankee Stadium. Shannon Lambert, yeah, that Dodgers line is juicy. Lone Wolf calling for the Soto home run.
Devin's pointing out that Aaron Judge has 18 home runs in 41 career games in Toronto. Hit 6 in Toronto last year. Those are good things. Dimitri, what's going on, buddy? Good to see you. Game 2 up. Both lineups confirmed in this one. Adrian Hauser projecting as kind of a lower end option, 7,000, 6,500. You can see that he's in 2 starts, 10 innings pitched, got just an 8.9% strikeout rate against an 11.1% walk rate. That is an unsustainable strikeout to walk ratio overall. 5.40 ERA and a 6.10 xFIP in the teeny tiny sample. In 111 and a third last year, 21 starts, he had a 20% strikeout rate, 20% strikeout rate in 111 and a third in 21 starts last year. Yeah. And then 21 starts the year before that, just a 15.2% strikeout rate. So he's not a good strikeout pitcher overall, but what he's done fairly effectively over time is keep the ball down to somewhat respectable launch angles, 10.3 degrees on a 5.6% barrel 2 years ago, 11.2 degrees on a 7.1% barrel last year, 2.70% home runs, 1.76. Pitches to contact a lot, but you're dealing with a lot of low trajectory fly balls, line drives, and ground balls from him. So maybe we like Hauser to keep the ball in the yard a little bit more than we like him to find much success here against this Pirates squad. You can see a little bit of that coming through in the Pirates home run model. But the fact that we do get O'Neill Cruz at 6.10 to lead the team, Brian Reynolds at 5.17, Rowdy at 5.31, and Jack Suwinski at 5.17 with 2 very good left-handed power hitters here. These are okay. It's not Framber Valdez, where these would be in the 2-3 range for these guys. So yeah, he cuts their home run upside down a little bit, but I don't think it's off the table for at least one of these guys to succeed getting up, halfway toward the magic number for home run upside. The issues for these guys has been, Suwinski just sitting at 196, 276, 333. I like him to take a big step forward. He's been putting good contact on the ball across last season. A 15.7% barrel rate, 43.4% hard hits, resulted in just 26 home runs. I was going to say just 11. That doesn't sound right. Resulted in 26 home runs in 534 plate appearances. So I think the power is going to come around for the lefty. He's very cheap at 3,600, 2,700. Again, not the best home run spot overall, but definite power upside and talent from Suwinski. Rowdy has 1 home run on the board so far this year, just a .070 ISO, 256, 360, 326 is a decent triple slash though. Hitting cleanup in this lineup between Andrew McCutchen, who hit his 300th career home run the other day and remains pretty cheap and moderately effective. Getting on base at a 326 clip. Got the 1 home run, 1 stolen base. Front end of the triple slash is weak, just an 87 WRC plus over 43 plate appearances. Striking out way too much, but he's getting on via some walks. McCutchen's on the back end at this point, but I think he's still playable when he's in the lineup at 4,000 and 2,500 hitting 5th. Brian Hayes on the other side of Tellez, very interesting for 4,600, 2,900. Hayes out to a good start this year, 17% better than average for run creation, 290, 400, 371. No homers, no steals, kind of rough for DFS production some days, but has been putting bat on ball very well, just a 16% strikeout rate, also walking at a 14.7% clip. Brian Reynolds striking out under 20%, walking at a 14% rate, 2 home runs, 2 steals, getting on base at 359. 111 WRC plus. I think, as I said before, I think this is at least middle of the road kind of a lineup all year. I don't think these guys are necessarily overperforming by big leaps and bounds. So I think they're playable here against Hauser. I just don't love the spot. There are better spots, but they're very cheap. Make for probably a decent secondary stack where you're looking at give me 2 of those 3 guys plus Tellez and Suwinski, something along those lines. Or just straight line top 4 and Jack if you want to skip McCutchen. Some good options there. O'Neill Cruz at 3,200 on FanDuel is pretty fairly priced. He's got 3 home runs, a stolen base already, 79 WRC plus, just a 150 ISO, and a monster 38.2% strikeout rate. But on the days where he clicks, you get pretty insane scores out of him. So I like the power, the speed upside out of O'Neill Cruz, and I like the spot in the batting order ahead of these guys. Just needs to work on getting on base at better than a 279 clip, maybe not striking out nearly 40% of the time. On the Mets side, going up against Martin Perez, I think Perez could succeed. He's made 3 starts, 19 innings. First start out, 4 1/3 against Miami. Struck out just 2, allowed a run on 6 hits. Next start gave up 2 runs on 6 hits, but he struck out 6 Nationals, and they're better against lefties. Worked 6 2/3 in that one. Then he had a good start against the Tigers. Faced 29 Tigers over 8 innings. Gave up 1 run, allowed 6 hits again in that one. I think he gave up 6 hits in all 3 of his starts so far. Walked 0, struck out 7 over 8 innings, walked 0, gave up 1 run on 6 hits. It's a pretty solid DFS start for 8,700 now. He's going up against a Mets team that is going to probably be pretty up and down all throughout the season, but they're not without talent. Francisco Lindor's been a total mess to start the year. 32 WRC plus, but all 4 of the guys around him are pretty high end and have been playing pretty well to start the year. Brendan Nimmo at a 132 WRC plus. He's got 2 home runs and a stolen base, getting on at a 382 clip. Starling Marte moved up the lineup because he's out to a good start. 279, 343, 393, 109 WRC plus, 2 homers, 3 steals for him. Alonso, 6 home runs, one of the league leaders. League lead is currently 7. 322 ISO, 158 WRC plus for Pete, 271, 358, 593 triple slash overall. Walking at a 10.4% clip, not striking out too much. This is basically in line with his numbers from last year already. And then Brett Beatty out to a pretty good start as well. 19% strikeout rate for him, 315, 362, 389 triple slash. Creating runs 13% better than average. Alvarez not out to a great start. He's been okay in terms of the average. He's got a home run on the board, but just the 298 on base, not great. 99 WRC plus, not a strong ISO, but we know there's just tremendous power from the right side for him. 9 on the nose in the home run model for just 3,600 a catcher on DK, 2,800 on FanDuel. Kind of interesting. Jeff McNeil is not really doing much. Getting on base at a 352 clip is great, but still 3% worse than average creating runs. No batting average, not a lot of pop. He's a playable mixer if you're building a lot of Met stacks and multi-position eligible for cheap prices. But I skip Jeff McNeil most days. Probably would go to Tyrone Taylor if I'm grabbing somebody from the bottom of the lineup. Lot of righty-lefty home runs for Tyrone Taylor in the total home runs that he's hit over his career. 286, 333, 429 to start this season. Over 40 plate appearances. Got a homer on the board, a stolen base, 110 WRC plus. Harrison Bader's gotten things going a little bit, but I don't think a ton of him. He's more defensively oriented than he is offense. He gets some clutch hits from time to time. If you want to talk about whether clutch exists or not, we can have a conversation. But he's, I think, more renowned as a hitter just because of coming through in a couple spots like that than he is actually talented as a hitter. But Martin Perez is in play at 76, 8,000. Not the best prices, not the best projection. Wouldn't shock me to see him go 6 or 7 innings, pitch a fairly strong game, 5-6 strikeouts, maybe gives up a couple of runs. But I wouldn't be shocked by a decent start for Perez. So at SP2 on DraftKings, I think it's an interesting consideration. By that exact same token, though, I could definitely see the Mets succeeding against Perez. He's been a target over time. He's a guy who bounces back and forth. He really does. But that's kind of a both sides-er for me. Less so than Hauser. I think I leave Hauser on the table more with just kind of for lack of strikeout upside. It's more a spot where I think maybe if he succeeds, it's just in taming this offense rather than just sitting them down over and over with the strikeout. I do like Pittsburgh a little bit from the top 6. Connor Joe, Jared Triolo, Henry Davis, not an awful bottom third, though. I didn't talk about those guys before, but Connor Joe, cheap, out to a decent start, 292, 393, 458 with a 134 WRC plus. And then Triolo has an okay hit tool, can get himself on base a little bit. Henry Davis has been weak to start the season, but has a lot of prospect pedigree and fits into catcher pretty cheap if you're stacking that team. So not totally dead in the bottom end either. But the priority bats are, top 6, and you could take McCutch out of that and just call it 1 through 4 plus 6. So Pirates, a middle type, yes. Not a priority, but playable. Martin Perez, especially at SP2 on DK, I think can succeed. Playable. Mets bats, playable. Top end is playable there. Adrian Hauser, not really on the board. I guess maybe for 65 you could find some success with him on DraftKings if he pitches 6 clean innings, but I don't like it. Padres, Brewers. I think we got some of these lineups. Maybe not. Oh, Yanks lineup's out. Let's see. Anything weird for the Yankees? It is Wells in there. Trent Grisham getting the start today in center field. Volpe, Soto, Judge. No Stanton for the Yankees. Bit of a downgrade for the Yankees. Weakens the bottom end of that lineup pretty significantly with Trent Grisham in there. Weakens their ability to turn that lineup over, but top like 5, top 6 is still fine for the Yanks. Volpe, Soto, Judge, Rizzo, Torres, Verdugo. All right, these lineups don't look like they're in yet. So Joe Ross, we'll start with Mr. Ross. Some of you might know Joe Ross was on the mound in my lineup for my first real big win for baseball. It's Joe Ross with a Yankees Red Sox game stack for a game that I was at, and I forget who the one-off was. But a big first place finish. Years and years ago at this point. But he was also out of baseball for a couple of seasons there. Now he's back. He worked a couple of innings in the minors over the past couple of seasons, over 22 and 23. Had not thrown a major league pitch since 2021. He's 30 now. Has been, middling success. He's had a few good starts over the course of his career, but overall not a great option. First start of this year, 3 2/3, gave up 2 hits, 0 earned runs to the Twins, struck out 3, but walked 5. That's not good. Second outing, struck out 7 Reds at Cincinnati, worked 6 1/3, allowed 2 earned runs, 3 total runs on 5 hits. That's the kind of Joe Ross start that I'm talking about. He breaks those off from time to time. So I don't think he's totally dead here. 7,300 as an SP2 on DraftKings, 7,400 on FanDuel. Projects out okay. We're talking about a guy with no sample over the last 2 years. Comes back to a 10-inning, 22.7% strikeout rate with a 1.80 ERA, but a 4.32 xFIP. Hasn't given up a home run yet. Not many barrels, not much launch angle, but he's allowing guys to put bat on ball fairly strong, 46.4% hard hit rate. He's just kept the ball on the ground. You're definitely rolling the dice if you go to the Joe Ross play, but he's priced correctly for that. He's priced like right where he should be. Could be a little bit cheaper on DraftKings, but I won't quibble with the 73. I think it's fine, given a little bit of strikeout potential. He's going up against a Padres lineup that is good at limiting strikeouts, though. 17% strikeout rate for San Diego so far this season. Only Manny Machado at 22.8 and Tyler Wade, who is a part-time player, at 26.2 are above even a league average strikeout rate. There's a lot of very good low strikeout options in there. They know how to draw walks as well. Could exploit what's been an advanced walk rate for Joe Ross. So if you go down the Joe Ross lane, just kind of know that you could be walking into a lot of trouble with this lineup too. It is a major dice roll. I would stack Padres against him. I think just on their own, they're a pretty interesting stack. I definitely would stack them if I'm taking any Joe Ross shares. If you're building out 150 lineups and you grab 10% Joe Ross, grab a few Padres stacks as a hedge position because they could definitely get him. What they do well doesn't align all that well with what he does poorly. Or whatever, you know what I mean. 72 WRC plus so far on the season for Xander Bogaerts. Not great, but we saw him have a slow start last year. Got out of the gate okay in the Korea series and then has cratered since. 1 home run, 1 stolen base. Hasn't been effective at all. Getting on base at under a 300 clip isn't great. He's cheap, though, for his talent, for who we know he is over time. 2,900 on FanDuel. They finally gave him second base eligibility. 4,400 at second base on DraftKings. Bogaerts is always going to be interesting at those prices at the top of the lineup. 5,600, 3,800 for Fernando Tatis. A little bit cheap. 5 home runs, 2 stolen bases already this season. 246 ISO, 148 WRC plus. When we're talking about just the star players in their lineups across this slate, Tatis is one of the top guys, and he's a little bit cheaper than a lot of the other top guys. So just taking the discount, if you want to keep him in mind for a potential one-off, it could be very interesting. Given his extreme power, his bat on ball skills, the fact that he's not a high strikeout guy by any means, I think it's an interesting spot for Tatis in both a one-off sense and as a crucial part of stacking this team. Jake Cronenworth, one of my bigger misses so far this season. 126 WRC plus in the 3 spot. 78 plate appearances, 265, 338, 485, 3 home runs. I'm going to continue giving him credit until he starts to stumble. I was questioning him in this spot in the lineup, and he's done well. 3,800, 3,000. He's still very cheap, too, for somebody who's been putting up those numbers. First base and second base on FanDuel. A lot of interesting multi-position guys on this team on FanDuel, if this is the version of the lineup that we get. Giving Jackson Merrill his shortstop eligibility. The fact that Ha-Seong Kim holds down 3 positions. Cronenworth's got 2. Bogarts has 2. And then Tyler Wade, if he's in the lineup at 2,300, has 4. Makes this team really flexible at very affordable pricing, too. Only Tatis is expensive on this team. A lot less so on DraftKings. You do get shortstop eligibility out of Manny Machado, who oddly doesn't have multi-position eligibility on FanDuel, where they got it right. So just a unique little twist, and then nobody else with multi-position on DraftKings. Not worried about Machado. 4,700, 3,100. He's kind of rounding into form. 4 home runs on the board. 211 ISO up to a 118 WRC plus. 254, 329, 465. Already pulling things together. So I think he's a little bit cheap. 4,700, 3,100. Kind of makes for an interesting spot. So 1 through 4 here, as always. Definitely in play for me. You can see some pretty good home run marks for Manny and for Tatis above him. Then you get into Profar for 3,200, 2,800. What was the quote? Will Smith, patron saint of rotoscouts takes in the game the other day, or talking about the confrontation at home plate the other day. I don't know why we would have thrown at him. He's kind of irrelevant. Will Smith must watch this show. That said, Profar has been anything but irrelevant to this team to start this season. 66 plate appearances. He's created runs 66% better than average. Leading this team in WRC+. He's got 2 home runs on the board, 321, 424, 536. Show me what the next 166 plate appearances look like, and then we'll talk. But right now, you can't argue with the start. He always starts well, and then he completely trails off. 2,800 is an effective price. 3,200 is pretty cheap on DraftKings. So I do think if you're stacking Padres, you include Jurickson Profar in that list of guys. You rotate them through. I greatly prefer Ha-Seong Kim. I believe in the talent. I love the position and the pricing on FanDuel. Shortstop is the right spot to have him in on DraftKings. 3,800 is a great price for a dude who hit, 17 homers, 38 steals? 17 homers, 38 steals last year. 112 WRC plus in a breakout campaign for Kim last year. Campusano off to an okay start. 263, 276, 368. Needs to hit for a little bit more power or get on base a little bit more. But was putting bat on ball really effectively to start the season. Jackson Merrill, still very cheap, multi-position eligible. Off to a very strong start in his rookie season. 333, 419, 426, a 138 WRC plus, a homer, 2 steals. And then Wade, at least he's gotten 3 steals on the season, getting on at a 317 clip. The fact that I don't think Wade is relevant to the DraftKings slate. 2,600, you don't want Tyler Wade from the bottom of the lineup at third base. But 2,300 with 4 positions on FanDuel, play him wherever you want for not much investment. Hope that he gets 2 hits and steals a base and wraps around to these guys. He's kind of interesting. He's a utility play on FanDuel. Musgrove, 8,300 is too cheap for Joe Musgrove. I don't care about the bad start at that price. I care more about the quality over time that I know Joe Musgrove has provided. He over 18 and a third, striking out just 19.8, walking 8.1, 6.87 ERA, and a 4.74 xFIP underneath it. Hasn't been good. That said, his 4 starts have come against the Dodgers, the Giants, the Cardinals, and the Cubbies. The only good one came up against the Cards. 6 innings, gave up just 1 run on 5 hits, struck out 7 in that game. That's Joe Musgrove. That's the Joe Musgrove that we know and love. In every other start, each of the other 3 gave up at least 4 earned runs, strikeout high of 5 across those, and he failed to complete 6 innings in each of those other 3 starts. 17 starts last year, 24.3% strikeouts, 3.05 ERA, 3.70 xFIP. A full season the year before, 181 innings, 30 starts, 24.9% strikeouts, 2.93 ERA, and a 3.47 xFIP. Joe Musgrove, still a good pitcher. The Brewers, this version of the lineup has no Christian Yelich. He's nursing a back injury. If he's in the lineup, they gain a little bit of ground. Musgrove maybe slightly diminished. But going up against this Brewers lineup that has a 24.4% strikeout rate so far this season, last year was at, for the guys who were in the lineup last year, 24.4, exact same number. That's basically normalized already. So I think there's sneaky strikeout upside. I just love the price for Musgrove, so I'll definitely have some Joe Musgrove on FanDuel. At 86, he's definitely in the mix on the DraftKings slate. Projected right here, pretty good for the money. So definite yes to Joe Musgrove. I think you can draw some stacks of Brewers on the other side, but Oliver Dunn out of the top spot, no longer at the dead minimum price, only third base eligible for 34 on DraftKings. Not great. 250, 308, 417, and 97 WRC plus with a 167 ISO, a home run, 2 steals so far. That was more interesting when he was dead min. William Contreras out to a great start to the season. 375, 455, 661, 4 home runs, a stolen base, a 286 ISO, 195 WRC plus. I don't love Sal Frelick in the 3 spot, but he's out to an okay start. 308, 379, 346, creating runs a little bit. He's very, very cheap if you want to go to this team. Just lacks premium contact for a 3-hitter. You know, that's the Yelich spot. That's where they really get downgraded. Willy Adames, 4,400, 3,300. Very cheap for a guy with real power. 12.4% barrels last year, 13% barrels the year before with a better hard hit rate than last year's. Out to a good start, 310, 365, 534, 3 home runs, a stolen base. Creating runs 42% better than average with a 224 ISO. Everything about this and probably that is not all that realistic. This is not all that realistic. Adames is going to go back to mid-20s, high 20s strikeouts. He'll continue to hit for power. The triple slash is going to diminish pretty quickly. But he's out to a strong start, so I guess get him while he's cheap because the price will probably go up before it flips back down. 4,400 at a shortstop, still an effective price. 6.11 in the home run model is third on that team. So if I'm stacking Brewers, Willy Adames is in play. Jake Bauers, 5.15 in the home run model. The idea of cheap lefty power. 1 home run this season so far in 34 plate appearances, hasn't done much else. Last year, 12 home runs in 272, but a really bad triple slash, 11% worse than average creating runs. It's kind of who Jake Bauers is. Rhys Hoskins for 4,800 is interesting at first base. You can't play these two guys together anyway, so I would just opt for Hoskins in most lineups. You get multi-position on Jake Bauers on FanDuel. 3,100, good price for Hoskins on the FanDuel slate as well. 3 home runs already this season, a 250 ISO, 120 WRC plus. We know that he's a good right-handed source of power over time. Turang, definitely interesting at the bottom of the lineup if you're going to this team. 3,800, 3,200, second base and shortstop on FanDuel, second only on DraftKings. A little bit of stolen base upside. He's been getting on base efficiently to start the season, creating runs well. Jackson Chourio has been kind of weak to start the season for a kid with star caliber prospect buzz. All the talent in the world, 2 home runs, 2 steals, not bad, but 23% worse than average creating runs so far, striking out at a 29.6% clip. The premium contact has been pretty weak as well. So he's 20 years old, young kid who didn't have a lot of time to develop in the minors, got kind of rushed up just based on his overall talent. So finding his footing in the show. I think he's playable on any given slate, given the raw upside for a home run, for some stolen bases. But it might be kind of like Volpe last year, where it was like, yeah, he's hitting an occasional home run, he's stealing the occasional base, but look at everything else, it's pretty bad. That might be where we're at with Chourio so far. Work in progress. Moved back down the lineup. Less interesting than he could be, less interesting than he might be. At least the prices are cheap, though. 3,600, 3,200. FanDuel's a little higher at 36 on DraftKings. Certainly, I wouldn't exclude him from my Brewer stacks. He's a very, very interesting young player. 3,200 on FanDuel, it's a little bit more of an ask, but you got a lot of cheap prices to work with up here, so it's not really that problematic. So if you want to stack Brewers against Joe Musgrove, I would definitely include Chourio, and he's probably going to be less popular than like his talent should dictate. Musgrove, definite yes. Love the pricing. Could continue to fail. Might not be good Joe Musgrove. We've seen him in blips, 5-start blips, not be great or be, bad in 4 of them and good in 1 of them. So this might be the 5th of those 5. But given where he's priced and who he is over time, I like Joe Musgrove. Joe Ross, I do think is a dart throw of a potential disaster, but he's correctly priced for that. A little bit of strikeout upside, a little bit of talent upside. But again, what he does poorly with the walks, this team can exploit, and these guys are very difficult to strike out on the other side. Padres bats are a yes against Joe Ross. Brewers bats a lot more tepid in terms of interest going up against Musgrove. I think there are a couple playable spots in that lineup. I think you can maybe get away with a one-off William Contreras if you really like him, but probably not the right spot to do that. So very, very low interest in the Brewers. Monty Pritchett's here. Thank you, Monty. I appreciate that. Monty says, easily the best pregame ML DFS rundown. Show your support. Smash that like button. Appreciate that very much, my friend. And always appreciate the reminders to tell people to hit the like button. Those always help. I know it feeds the algo. A lot of people here watching, so hit that thing. If you're not already subscribed here, subscribe. If you're not already following at rotoscouts, the Twitter handle, follow that one. The other one's like my personal handle. I don't really tweet much at all on either one. It's basically just sending out the links and then retweeting the links from the other one. But follow those, helps out. If you see stuff pop up, like it, retweet it, spreads the word a little bit. And also down in the description for the video, you should see mentioned our promo with our sim partners, AceMind. AceMind.io. If you're looking for sims, if you're looking for an optimizer, they've got great products for MLB, NFL, NBA, MMA, PGA, so on and so forth. Always developing more. Shockingly responsive customer support. I had a really stupid issue where I had accidentally saved an old template and couldn't figure out why I couldn't get the sim for baseball to work. And I messaged Blaine the other day, and he said in about 2 seconds, he was like, "Hey, dummy, is that just saved?" And I was like, "Oh." So it's that easy. Every time I've run into an issue, it's because of something stupid I did with inputs. Shockingly easy tools to use. Very, very affordable. They give you 3 days free as a trial period just to check out the product no matter who you are. And then if you decide, or when you decide you want to subscribe over there, use promo code rotoscouts without the at. Rotoscouts. One word, all caps. Rotoscouts. Gets you 20% off your first month over there. It's a pretty good deal with those guys. Helps us out a little bit. Stephen Leibowitz, I'm going to throw one in today. See how that goes. I usually play NFL there, not much baseball. I don't know what you're talking about. Andrew Martinez, Terry, with the Padres, would you do more of a 2, 3, or 5-man Padres stack? Probably. I think they'd probably be pretty ideal for a 3, but I think you could definitely get away with more. Like if you just wanted to call it 1, 2, 3, Bogarts, Tatis, Machado on talent, track record, history, that's totally fine. But you could easily straight line that through those 4. And then I would go to either Kim or Campusano if you're playing on DraftKings where you get to 5. But Profar is in the mix given what he's done so far this season and the very cheap price for the spot in the lineup in that stack. So I think 1 through 7 in any combination, they're fairly stackable. Given that there's an effective catcher for there's a formula for one of those lookups. How ridiculous are these formulas? Given that one of the stackable players is their catcher for a good price, it makes it interesting just in like any combination. So it really depends on what you want to put them on the other side of to answer that question. I don't think there's one that's like necessarily better. I think they are an effective team to use as a 2-man, effective to use as a 3-man, and I think there's a decent 5-man in there too. So sorry to kind of just say yes to which one of these 3 options is better. But it really depends on what you want to put them together with. But I think they can be effective for that, and especially because they're fairly cheap, and you get kind of star caliber talent at the top end. So I do think that just hey, I want to go to 5-man Dodgers stack. That probably doesn't work, but that's where you say, all right, then 2 or 3 of these Padres are guys to keep in mind. But I do think you could just start with the 5-man build from the Pods. Favorite guys for a 5-man would be 1, 2, 3 for sure. I'll give it a Cronenworth. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 probably. Like I said before. Or 1, 2, 4, 6, 7. And skip Cronenworth and get the catcher in there. Just depends on your build at that point though. Hopefully that was sort of helpful. Again, sorry to kind of half-ass answer your question. Let's check for lineups in this game. Doesn't look like we have. Oh, nope, there they are. Royals lineup looks about like expected, I think. No, changes after. All right, Velasquez moves up to the cleanup spot. MJ hitting 5th. No Sal Perez. Top 3 spots are the same. Then it's Lofton, Frazier, Freddie Freeman, and Kyle Isbell. So no Hunter Renfroe for the Royals. White Sox side barely matters, but it's Grossman, Benintendi, Vaughn, Sheets, Lennon Sosa, who I keep accidentally putting in there as Edmundo Sosa and then having to fix. Dom Fletcher after Sosa, Braden Shoemake, Martin Maldonado, Nicky Lopez. So it's basically this with these guys flipped. That team's just completely terrible, though, to the point where they're putting Seth Lugo on the board with a pretty decent projection. Lugo's not a bad pitcher. 11.8% strikeout rate over 18 2/3 is not where we'd want it. He did have a 23.2% last year in 146 1/3. That was a lot better. We're looking for this Seth Lugo tonight. I think this team could definitely push him to these kind of heights. I like him for a little bit of strikeout upside. He does have just a 1.45 ERA in the 3 starts this year over 18 2/3. 4.53 xFIP under that, but he hasn't been bad for walks. He hasn't given up any home runs or all that much premium contact. He's kept the ball down very effectively with just a 3.4 degree average launch, 4.9% barrels. So Lugo, I think, could succeed while finding some additional strikeout upside here. Did I put his starts in here? Completed 6 innings in each of his first 3 starts, which is also good when we're playing for the bonuses. That was the only note I put about the first 3. I didn't break down the first 3. This is all just in the article that's up on the site. That's what I was looking at there. The one issue with Lugo is 9,600. That is a tough price to pay for Seth Lugo, but there's just tons and tons of upside in facing this White Sox lineup. They're bad. So he's in play. I probably prefer Kirby with some strikeout upside against Cincinnati, but he hasn't been pitching well. I definitely prefer Glasnow, but this is realistic that Seth Lugo is right here on that board. So 9,600 is kind of effective for this spot. I like him better than I like Merrill Kelly for 10 against the Cubs. I do like Musgrove a lot at 83. I would take the discount there over Lugo probably, but that's a worse matchup. Frankie Montas, it's a better lineup for Seattle, but they've really struggled and there's a ton of strikeouts there. So this is close, and it's close in projections too. Lugo at 84 on DraftKings, I think, is kind of a no-brainer consideration in that just like solid option at SP1 or SP2, wherever he fits. Obviously a little higher end in terms of price for SP2, but I think he's easily on the board at just 8,400 on DraftKings. Nick Nastrini making his debut. I think somebody said that he was added to the DraftKings slate. Let me check that real quick, see where they priced him. Nestrini's 6,800 against a Royals lineup that I think we want to play. Thanks, Steven. Should have just relied on you guys. So at 6,800, probably just saying pass. 11 projected for DraftKings. Remember, these are live projections for this guy. In 2 AAA starts this season, 7.71 ERA, but a 2.45 xFIP underneath it. That's why ERA is weird. 35.1% strikeout rate over the tiny 2-start sample in AAA this year. Last year, he was with the Dodgers to start the season, made 3 stops through the minors, went from AA to AAA. A little bit of effectiveness. Not a bad pitcher necessarily. I think he's ranked 8th organizationally. But going up against the Kansas City lineup that's been frisky, especially in like the top 5, I don't love the spot. Let me look real quick. Now that he is in play, take a little bit of a better look at him. So where's the sample? Let's see. 2022 in high A with the Dodgers, 86 and a third, a 34.9% strikeout rate, but 10.7% walks. At Double-A in 22, 30 and a third innings, 35.6% strikeout rate, but a 13.6% walk rate. Pitching as a 22-year-old that year. Last year, the biggest sample is 17 starts, 73 and 2/3 in Double-A with the Dodgers organization. And he pitched to a 26.1% strikeout rate with an 11.3% walk rate. Pitched to a 4.03 ERA with a 4.74 xFIP. That was in Double-A as a 23-year-old. Was a little bit more effective. It's close. In Double-A when he came over to the White Sox in 4 starts, tiny sample. Strikeouts came down a little bit. Walks went up. Strikeouts went up a little bit. Walks came down. But then they moved him up to Triple-A, and the strikeouts dipped again. 29.1% strikeouts, 12.7% walks in 4 starts at Triple-A. There's talent, but I question whether going to him at a full price. If he was $4,000, I think it would be more of a conversation. But you get a fairly low strikeout Royals lineup that's been hitting for power, that's been scoring runs. Even without Sal Perez, I probably wouldn't go to Nastrini here. I would go to the Royals bats against those walks. You can see some of these guys know how to draw walks. You can see some of the low strikeout rates. You also get egregiously high strikeout rate in Nelson Velasquez. A little bit of strikeouts from Michael Garcia up at the top of the lineup too. But there's a lot of effectiveness for Kansas City, and they make for a good DFS stack on a lot of days. They've got some home run power. They've got some speed. They're, again, missing one of their stars in Perez, but some pretty good options here. Bobby Witt, 6,300, 4,000. Definitely very, very expensive, but fits into a premium position, and everybody else in the lineup is affordable, so it just really helps to average down his price. I don't mind that at all. 333, 389, 697, 202 WRC plus for Witt so far. 4 home runs, 3 steals. Absolutely. Can go to Bobby Witt here. Garcia's off to a weird start. Just a 222 on base percentage, a 182 batting average, 60 WRC plus. They keep rolling him out in the leadoff spot. 4,900, 3,100. He's also striking out at a 25% clip. Last year in a 515 plate appearance sample, got on at a 323 pace, 272 average. Not an ideal leadoff hitter. It's kind of a weird spot in the lineup to have him, but there's talent there. 3 home runs, 3 steals in with the bad triple slash numbers, the bad WRC plus. He's at least affordable, bolt-on part at the front end, but I really consider this team more from Bobby Witt down, and it's really those 4 guys that I'm going to prioritize. Again, Velasquez and Melendez switch spots in the batting order, but it doesn't really matter. They're both still cheap on both sides, really. 7.52, 7.93. This will go over 8 for Velasquez when I move him up. This will come down to 7.45 or something like that for Melendez. 3 homers for MJ, 2 homers already for Velasquez. Both guys creating runs, both guys getting on base. 277, 375, 74, and 314, 364, 490 so far, going up against a rookie making his debut. They hit behind Vinny Pasquantino, who doesn't strike out, does walk. 10% strikeouts, 11.7% walks this year so far. Last year, 11.9% strikeouts, 9.6% walks. Vinny's just got to put the bat on ball a little bit more, with a little bit more oomph. Get back to 8.8% barrels, 46.9% hard hits, and we'll see the power numbers spike. 2 home runs on the year. Hit one the other day, 154 ISO so far. Power will come around, I think. Just premium bat on ball skills, and he's very affordable. The bottom end, I don't like quite as much. The actual bottom end that we're dealing with, though, is different. Oh, good. Lab's finally loaded these. I can just pop them in. Royals, and I'll do the White Sox too because we're about to talk about them. All right, so on the bottom end, we get Nick Lofton, 3,300, 2,600, 238, 370, 238 to start the season, and 88 WRC plus. Adam Frazier from the left side, very cheap at second base in the outfield on FanDuel. Just a stolen base on the season, a 0 ISO for both of those guys. Not great for power down the bottom here. 89 WRC plus so far for Frazier. Freddie Fermin does have power, hasn't shown it yet in 27 plate appearances last year, 9 home runs in 235. Was fairly effective at 281, 321, 461. Created runs 8% better than average in that sample. Decent backup catcher power, if nothing else, from Freddie Finnerman. And then Kyle Isbell, an afterthought at best at the bottom of the lineup, a 58 WRC plus, does have a homer and 3 steals, but not much else. So it is a weak bottom third of the lineup, but those 5 guys up top I kind of like here. For the White Sox, again, just kind of targets for Seth Lugo here. I really don't go to the White Sox. It's just contrarian, and you're going to like the worst lineup in baseball for the sake of being contrarian. They are very cheap. They can help you get to other things. They're going up against a pitcher who's just been okay, but there's not a lot to work with here. The average batting average so far is 189, notably well below the Mendoza line. The average on base percentage for this group is 266. The average run creation mark is 57. It's not a good baseball team. They have the entire confirmed lineup has 3 home runs. The Royals lineup has 1, 2, 3 guys in it with at least 3 home runs. It's a terrible team. Embarrassingly bad. If you're stacking this team, you want these 2 guys, Andrew Vaughn, Gavin Sheets. They're the 2 best players on this team right now. Sheets is out to a good start, 286, 381, 571. He's got 2 of those 3 home runs that this team has hit. 286 ISO, creating runs 68% better than average somehow over 42 plate appearances. Andrew Vaughn, terrible start so far, no home runs, little bit of power, 4,000, 2,500. He's capable enough bat for the pricing, and in this matchup, it's just there's no support. There's nothing to work with here. Robbie Grossman, 3,000, 2,600. All right, sure, he's in the leadoff spot. He's slashing 222, 417, 259, so he's getting on base a little bit. What are you setting the table for? There's just nothing. Lennon Sosa, Dom Fletcher, Braden Shoemake, Martin Maldonado, Nicky Lopez. Just a big no thank you across the board. Just justifies the Seth Lugo shares. You're paying a matchup tax at 96 on FanDuel, but it looks pretty worth it here. The White Sox, and again, to be clear, when we talk about these things for baseball is incredibly variant. The White Sox could absolutely come out and succeed today. These guys could all have a good day. They could hang 10 runs on Seth Lugo in the first inning and be the stack of the day for very cheap prices and no popularity. On this side of lock, it looks like a terrible spot to be in. Royals are a yes. Seth Lugo is a yes. The White Sox and Nick Nastrini are both no's. TGH saying 2,100 Maldo and pray he goes yard. Yeah, Devin, exactly. Sheets is the fact that he's created runs that much with this lineup. Just, yeah, a little surprising. Had a couple of days, I think he had a couple early triples and then didn't get driven in by like Eloy Jimenez before Jimenez went down. Matthew Patterson's here. What's up, buddy? Good to see you. Could be Travis. Got Braden Shoemake under 0.5 strikeout, under half a strikeout. .6% strikeout rate on the season. This year's pretty good. 25% last year in just 4 plate appearances. We won't ding him for that. Let's see what he did in the minors. Not a player I've looked at all that often. I don't want to burst your strikeout bubble. It's not bad. 19.8% strikeout rate in AAA last year over 526 plate appearances. 18.6% over 307 the year before. 21.8 over 344 in AA the year before that. The issue is AA in 2021, he was already 23 years old. 2022, he was 4 years old. He was 24 years old. If he was 4 years old, that would be damn impressive. So he was 24 in 2022 in AAA, and then he was 25 last year in AAA. It's an okay strikeout rate, though, and now he's in the show at age 25, so yeah, maybe. Lugo, not a bad strikeout pitcher. 23.2% over 146 and a third as a starter last year, 25.4% out of the pen, where he was a little bit more aggressive the year before that. I don't love the bet, but given the low strikeout rate so far this year in his 22 plate appearances, you could succeed. Strikeout props are weird. They're fun to chase. Hell, you just get him to pop out a couple times and you're there, right? This one I think is all bats. We corrected Darius Vines already. 7,800 just mispriced on the DraftKings slate for a matchup against Houston. 5,500 on FanDuel is very, very cheap for a starter, but you're throwing him against one of the best lineups in baseball. Doesn't really seem fair. Last year, made 2 starts in a cup of coffee, 20 and a third, posted a 3.98 ERA, but a 5.58 xFIP with a 16.7% strikeout rate in a very small sample, obviously. 20.15% strikeout rate with 9.4% walks in 34 and a third at AAA last year. Very similar numbers across 100 AA innings the year before. Doesn't look great. A little bit mispriced on DraftKings. Cheap on FanDuel, but doesn't look like there's much upside here. On the other side, Spencer Arrighetti. Really bad debut. Worked 3 innings, gave up 7 runs on 7 hits, walked 3, struck out 3 against the Royals, and now they're throwing him up against the Braves. So, yeah, we're not going to Spencer Arrighetti. 5,500, don't really. 5,700, he's just a target for bats. 3 guys in the Braves projected lineup over the magic number for home run upside. For the Astros, you get just Yordan Alvarez over the magic number and well over it. But you've got Kyle Tucker bumping right up against it. You've got Jainer Diaz at 8.51. You've got Jose Altuve at 8.55 with 5 home runs in the bag already. This is a very, very good Astros lineup. So it's just stacks its offense all day in this one. Highest run total on the board. Highest run total on the board at 10.5. 2 of the 3 highest overall implied totals, with the Dodgers pulling ahead of both teams at 5.69, but both these teams well over 5. Looks like a killer spot for offense. I'm sure they'll be very popular. They're expensive. They're difficult to combine, but I don't really care. You just go here. And honestly, the Astros do have a lot of cheap bats down lineup now, so they're kind of interesting. Do we have lineups here? We got both lineups. Beautiful. In a spot where I can just copy paste them. So again, neither pitcher in this matchup buys us a little time. How the hell is Mauricio Dubon not on the slate? Oh, yes. Weird. For some reason, he was whited out on labs. So Mauricio Dubon at the bottom of the Astros lineup. They went with Jose Abreu instead of John Singleton, which kind of sucks. I was hoping for Singleton down here as a lefty bat with a little bit of thunder instead of Abreu. That weakens the lineup a little bit, but it's their everyday first baseman, and we saw him surge back for power late last year and down the stretch, but has been out to a terrible, terrible start, over 50 plate appearances again. Dubon with quadruple position eligibility for 2,200. Not totally uninteresting if you're just looking for a wraparound on FanDuel. At 2,900, 2 positions on DraftKings, a lot less effective for that. But the top 7 here is intact and has a lot of quality in it. And then for the Braves, who's missing? No Orlando Arcia today. Luis Guillorme playing shortstop, presumably. But basically, most of the everyday version of the Braves lineup, the important parts are all here at the top 6. Orlando Arcia is a very effective and somewhat underrated shortstop option. And Guillorme is more of a defensively oriented slap hitter. But it's not a major ding to this lineup. Jared Kelenic was in the projected. He moves up a spot with his lefty bat. 3,600, 2,700 is interesting for him. Hopefully rescuing his career with a 414, 469, 517 start, a 170 WRC plus over 32 plate appearances. It's out to a great start, which is nice to see. No power yet, no home runs, no steals, no counting stats. but a good start for the lefty and former top prospect in baseball after a couple of roller coaster seasons. Travis d'Arnaud, good backup catcher power, 3,700, 2,800. No issues with d'Arnaud. He hasn't hit any home runs yet this season. Just a 61 WRC plus, 222, 263, 333 over his 38 plate appearances. He'll be fine. He's Travis d'Arnaud. I don't worry about it. Good premium contact numbers for very cheap catcher prices. Michael Harris moving up to the 6th spot. I like a lot. 4,700, 3,200 across sites, 316, 361, 509 to start the year. 2 homers, a stolen base, a 133 WRC plus. And then we get into just the 5-man unit of superstars. Ronald Acuna Jr., I mentioned it at the top of the show. No home runs yet, has stolen 7 bases, just a 104 WRC plus, still correctly priced at 65.43. He's going to come around. He'll be fine. MVP last year at 337, 416, 596 with a 170 WRC plus, a 258 ISO, 41 homers, and 73 steals, creating an entirely new club all of his own. Again, these are the correct prices for Acuna. Just ignore the cold start. And he's had some good games even with this start. 15 runs scored, 7 stolen bases. Power hasn't really come around for whatever reason, but he'll be fine. Ozzie Albies, 5,800, 4,000, one of the best second basemen in all of baseball, out to a strong start, similar to what he's done in previous years. 2 home runs, 2 steals, creating runs 35% better than average. You don't worry about Albies, you just plug him in where you can afford him. Austin Riley, same thing. Matt Olson, same thing. Off to decent starts, 293, 369, 603 for Olson with 3 home runs. Riley, 2 home runs, a little bit slower to start in terms of the triple slash, but a 217 ISO, creating runs 16% better than average, well over 30 home runs each of the last few years. Then Marcell Ozuna, 5,200, 3,900 across sites. FanDuel's got it right. Ozuna tied for the league lead at 7 home runs already. 373, 413, 780 triple slash so far. A 407 ISO, a 213 WRC plus. What does this guy have to do to get over 5,500 on DraftKings? 5,200, still too cheap. 3,900, correctly priced on FanDuel. 1 through 6 are all big yeses on both sites. And then 7 and 8 are bolt-on parts that help average the pricing down, and both have quality. Luis Guillorme is a bit of a stretch. He does have multi-position for cheap, but he's not much of a bat. 120 plate appearances last year, 1 home run, a 70 WRC plus, 2 home runs and a stolen base in 335 the year before that. Hit for a little bit better average. Got on base at a 351 clip. I would not really consider him much of a wraparound. He is very cheap. So, I mean, if you... The issue on DK, too, is if you were to play him and Albies in the same lineup, you've got to play him at third base, which means you're skipping Riley, and you're getting a really weak third baseman. So it's tougher on DraftKings. On FanDuel, you're only getting 4 guys. I really don't want one of them to be Luis Guillorme, but at least he's got shortstop there where I can plug him in, or obviously you've got the util spot. It's not an overly effective wraparound option. For the Astros, the 3 killers off the top: Jose Altuve, 382, 462, 721 to start the season. A 238 WRC plus. 5 home runs already. Jordan Alvarez, 317, 427, 556, a 238 ISO, a 184 WRC plus. 4 homers to start the season. Kyle Tucker, 4 homers to start the season also getting a stolen base already on the board. 239 ISO, creating runs 52% better than average. I'll remind you that this team got swept by the Yankees to start the season, and then these guys put up all these killer numbers. 3 elite, outrageously talented guys. Kind of like Fernando Tatis, where especially Tucker at 35.57 and Altuve at 54.37 across sites. A little bit cheap for their star caliber talent levels. Alvarez is more correctly priced. 42 on FanDuel is correct. 59 on DraftKings. Could easily be over 6. You get some good options to average the pricing down. Jainer Diaz still at just 4,200 on DraftKings is low. 3,100 on FanDuel. Don't need catchers there, but I'd still play him. I would consider him just consider this first base. Especially since we're skipping Abreu, just look at him like he's a first baseman on FanDuel. 302, 348, 476. He's hitting like a first baseman. 137 WRC plus. He's got 3 homers on the board. McCormick off to a slow start, but he's cheap. 4,000, 2,700 for a talented guy. I like McCormick despite the rough start, still creating runs at league average at worst. Jeremy Pena, good start to the season. 2 homers, 2 steals, 121 ISO, not hitting for a ton of power, but hitting for average, getting on base at a good clip, 151 WRC plus, only 4,000 at shortstop, 2,800 on this team. Definitely makes for an interesting option to build in with these other guys. Alex Bregman is also kind of that. Just 4,700 for all of Bregman's talent over time. 2,900 on FanDuel. He's very cheap. Still putting bat on ball a ton. Just a 15.3% strikeout rate. Can still get to first base when he needs to. Not hitting for much power to start. Power was diminished last year. I still like the upside at price for Alex Bregman. Just builds in nicely with those guys too. Abreu, like I said, kind of a lost cause to start the year at 111, 180, 133. Did bounce back for 18 home runs, but a week everything else last year. Might just be the end of the line for Jose Abreu. -7 WRC plus so far. And then Dubon, 2,900. Not a great fit third base and outfield as a wraparound play. I'd probably just take Bregman at third base. But with quadruple position eligibility and 2,200 on FanDuel, it makes him an interesting guy just in that utility knife kind of a sense. Just not a great spot in the lineup to get it from. I'd rather go to like Brendan Donovan from the Cards, who's going to be leading off with quadruple position eligibility. Braves bats, gigantic yes. Astros bats, not far behind is a big yes. Neither one of these pitchers. Here's the Cardinals right now. There's Brendan Donovan and quadruple position eligibility on the FanDuel slate. Let's see if that's where he is in fact hitting. We don't have this lineup yet. Let's see if Underdog posted it. Underdog _ MLB. Pretty quick on the draw with lineups. Nope. Doesn't look like we've got these yet. All right, so Sonny Gray, we'll start there. He projects out well, but it's difficult to wrangle. Going up against one of the worst overall lineups in baseball, despite a little recent success, despite playing spoiler early. Hate to break it to everybody, but this Athletics team continues to suck. 3.27 implied total earlier when I wrote the article for the Oakland side of things is kind of telling about where this lineup is. Sonny Gray came in limited to, I think it was 65, 70 pitches last week when we talked about him. Ended up working 5 innings, only faced 18 Phillies hitters, struck out 5, gave up 5 hits, but pitched a pretty clean 5 innings, gave up no runs. Very high-end matchup. I think we're probably still 5. We're almost certainly not getting through 6 on 75 pitches, which is the reported limit tonight. But we could get through 5 with some strikeout upside here. This Athletics lineup, if it's this version of the lineup, is striking out at a 31.6% clip to start the season. They were at 26% last year. So there are gettable strikeouts for Sonny Gray, who is a effective strikeout pitcher over time. Last year, Gray had a 24.3% strikeout rate in 184 innings, 32 starts. Year before, just a 24% strikeout rate in 119 and 2/3, 24 starts. Pretty good seasons for runs, pretty good seasons for limiting power. Sonny Gray, when not pitching in pinstripes, is quite the pitcher. 8,500 on the DraftKings slate. Affordable is probably the correct price. Like a regular Sonny Gray start here would be, high 9s? So probably a good price, even with the limit. And you don't need the quality start on DK. So I worry about it a lot less over there. I think Sonny Gray is firmly on the DraftKings board. The spot where I question it is for 9,700 on FanDuel. If I'm not getting 6 innings and the quality start, that becomes problematic when we've got some other very effective options on the board. It's a high price for the situation. If he gets through 6, then we may have sold ourselves short. But I think he's just problematically priced on FanDuel, so Sonny's a big yes on DraftKings. I think if you take a gigantic position on him, you could maybe draw some A's. I'd be looking at Zach Geloff, a couple of the lefties like Seth Brown, maybe some J.J. Bleday, maybe get Shea Langoliers in as a cheap catcher on DraftKings. I really don't like the bottom of the lineup outside of Ryan Noda, who's off to a bad start this season. Noda previously pretty good at getting on base, a little bit of lefty power. So far this year, 163, 265, 186, a 44 WRC plus. Not great. Shea Langoliers has 4 home runs. 3 of them came in one game. Otherwise, 200, 288, 467. Not great. Shea Langoliers is here to hit the occasional home run and have a good contact profile, but a lot of strikeouts and little else to offer. He's always cheap. He's never popular, so you can get away with it. Maybe you use it as a one-off. But yeah, not an easy team to stack. Toro's out to an okay start, 122 WRC plus over 45 plate appearances. Let's see the next 100 before we get excited about it. 275, 356, 375, a homer, a steal. He's okay. If I'm going to this team, it's probably 1, 2. I guess I put JJ in there too. One, maybe I just straight line those 5. Or you could do like middle, like maybe Toro, Geloff, Brown, Langoliers, and then try and stretch for Noda. And then Noda, if he's getting on base, wraps back around to the top of that. I don't love the idea of occupying first and third with Athletics. I also don't really love the idea of a 5-man Athletic stack. Maybe it's better as a 3-man. As a 3, you could maybe go cheap, skip Zach Geloff, who's also still, is himself cheap. But maybe you could look at like a Brown, Langoliers to Noda 3-man, which is a weird way to do it. But you're buying 2 lefty bats, one of their better power bats, and they're very cheap. Getting into the Cardinals bullpen after Sonny Gray. I'm not sure if they've got somebody designated as a long relief guy or anything, but yeah, it's a tough team to want to stack. Ross Stripling on the other side, I think, is a target for Cardinals bats, though. You can see some of that in the home run model here. Goldie, Gorman, and Arenado all over the magic number. Went with Gorman as the home run pick of the day. 4,500 at second base on DraftKings, 2,900 second and third base on FanDuel. 217, 288, 417. Not a great triple slash, but a 200 ISO. 3 home runs to lead the team to start the season. Just a 94 WRC plus. Cards haven't been great. Goldschmidt at 55 WRC plus has been part of the problem. 193, 292, 246. 1 home run so far this year. I really like Paul Goldschmidt to turn things around. I'm not worried about it just yet. Nolan Arenado, no power yet this season. Just a 106 ISO, 1 home run. But 273, 290, 379. At least he's hit the ball a little bit. But just an 83 WRC plus for him. I'm not worried about these 3 guys. I think they'll be fine. Get back to doing what they do. Their prices are discounted for the slow starts on FanDuel. They're fairly discounted on DraftKings. They're still relatively a little bit more expensive, but it's close. And then Brendan Donovan's been the team's best player at 141 WRC plus. 4 positions on FanDuel for 3,300, 4,200 just in the outfield on DraftKings. But a great starting point for a stack of those guys. And then you get Wilson Contreras on the other side of that. If you're playing on DK for 4,300, it's a good catcher buy. 2 home runs, a 141 WRC plus, a 211 ISO for him so far. Fairly effective power bat at the catcher spot. You could opt to go Lars Nootbaar for the same price. He's in the outfield. On FanDuel, he's 3,400. That's a little bit high, I feel like, for Nootbaar just starting his season. 4,300 on DraftKings, a little bit more appropriate. Good player, though. Got a home run on the board over the weekend. Just made 13 plate appearances so far this year. Last year in 503, 14 homers, 11 steals. Year before, 14 homers and 4 steals in 347. Capable lefty bat with upside. Jordan Walker, a little bit cheap, 3,300, 2,500, off to a really rough start again. But had a pretty solid last 4 months of the season last year. So I'll continue to go to Jordan Walker when I'm stacking this team at 3,300, 2,500. Helps average down the cost of the other guys. Mason Wynn has been fairly effective from the bottom of the lineup. He's very cheap. Not the most ideal shortstop in terms of DFS quality. 349, 356, 465. Has created runs 22% better than average. But you can see in the counting stats, 2 steals, no homers, 5 runs, 5 ribbies. We're not really achieving a lot there for DFS quality. And then Victor Scott has been not achieving anything for any kind of quality. He has 2 steals, but he's got a 158 on base percentage. 098 batting average. I think the first thing I said about Victor Scott is that you can't steal first base. It's an old baseball adage, obviously. I didn't make it up. But it is very true about this player. For all his speed, it's entirely wasted if he can't get to first base. This is terrible. Not a good way to start his career. -9 WRC plus. Meanwhile, poor Esteury Ruiz is languishing in AAA, mashing the ball, stealing bases, creating runs. He's on this team, but similar kind of skill sets. Esteury has been killing it since he got sent down unfairly by the Athletics. He deserves to be in the show. Victor Scott maybe needs a little bit more seasoning in the minors right now. But Definitely 1 through 5, 1 through 6 is very interesting to me. Jordan Walker bolts into that for a cheap price. So cards, bats, pretty big yes. Ross Stripling, a very significant no. Stripling, I forgot to talk about. Hasn't been terrible over his first couple of starts, but he's allowed earned runs that just kind of kill quality. First start of the year, 5 innings, struck out 6 against the Guardians, who were notoriously low strikeout, but he allowed 4 earned runs on 7 hits, including a homer, walked 2. Struck out 3 of 26 against the Red Sox, but just gave up 1 earned run on 8 hits. He's given up hits. He was tagged for 11 in his next start, and he gave up 6 earned runs. That one was kind of messy. Struck out 5, walked 3 over 6 innings in that start. So a little bit up and down, but there's some quality there. I just think too much of this Cardinals team, and I'm seeing some pretty good numbers here at fair prices to not want to just take the cards against Stripling most of the time. Doesn't project out great, even for the 6,000 on DraftKings. It's a tough ask as a bargain bin SP2. Not a lot of success for Stripling. 18.4% strikeouts in 11 starts last year. 20.7, good walk rate, decent ERA and xFIP numbers, good whip that year. 11% swinging strikes that year. It's 2 years ago. It's very, very thin. He might not be entirely off the DraftKings board. He's entirely off the FanDuel board. At 6, maybe as a very thin. You can see where he is. Very thin dart throw as an SP2. He's at least cheaper than Hauser. He's cheaper than Ben Brown. He's the cheapest guy I would go to, let's put it that way. As somebody who does like to embrace a little bit of risk for cheap pricing on the mound and try and win it with bats, let's go that route. I'm not recommending that you do it, but if I was building 150 lineups on DraftKings tonight, I would probably do it at least a couple times. Cardinals big yes. Sonny Gray on DraftKings is probably in play. It's a little bit pricey, but you can get 5, get the win bonus, and get some strikeouts out of Sonny. 97 on FanDuel takes him probably off the board because I don't think we're getting the complete 6. I don't think we're getting the quality start bonus. If he can get you there, if you've got faith in that, then he's playable. But he needs to get the quality start on FanDuel. Stripling I just talked about. A's bats pretty much a no for me, but they're at least super contrarian. Trav, oh no, I was planning to throw a couple Stripling darts back to the drawing board. Is that Trav, yes, I do like the value of Gorman at plus 400 for a homer prop. He was the homer pick of the day. I'm never going to go against myself on something like that. I think everybody out there knows, the home run picks, I do my best. When they hit, we'll always pat ourselves on the back for it, but there's some guesswork in there. I am following the model, but a lot of the times it's somewhat arbitrary, just me saying I picked Chris Morrell 3 times already, let me go to Ian Happ, right? Some days some of those are like that, but for the overall home run pick, I do tend to think about it a little bit more and try and find somebody who's good, and I will lean away from using Aaron Judge that much, Jordan Alvarez, the most obvious guys, and I do try and find a little bit lower owned guys sometimes. I didn't look where Gorman's going to be owned. He should probably be pretty popular today, but I do, there's thought in there, but there's also, we're throwing darts on a lot of those home run picks. Out of everything, that's probably the thing to be to treat as more the for fun part of it. But yes, I do like that value for a home run. And Trav, as I said, if you're considering them dart throws and you know what you're getting into and you're playing on DraftKings for that Ross Stripling play, then the price he's the cheapest guy I would consider for that. I don't want to talk you out of it if you like that spot, because I do think he could get there. John Starling retired. Effective immediately or effective? Hang on, I got to read this real quick. It's probably effective at the end of the year. Famous Yankees announcer John can't tell a home run from a fly ball, Sterling. Effective immediately. Wow. Recognizing his diminishment. Oh, there are a couple other people that I could name who should recognize their diminishment and retire from what they're trying to go back to doing. not the guy who's currently doing the job. I'm, of course, talking about a local bus driver here in Jersey City. It's kind of sad. I mean, Sterling's 80-something and has been doing this for quite a long time. But has been greatly diminished lately. Again, in his ability to distinguish a fly ball from a home run. Susan, Monty Pritchett knows. But yeah, that's a sad day for baseball. Love him or hate him, and I've gone back and forth on that over the years. A lot of cheesy nicknames and cheesy home run calls, and way over the top. But he'll be missed. Comforting voice over many years, going back to childhood. Anyway. Ben Brown, 6,300, 6,000 on the DraftKings, on the FanDuel slate, 6,300 on DraftKings. Merrill Kelly, 9,400, 10,000. We'll start with Ben Brown. First couple of appearances were in bulk relief, and then he made one full start. In the full start, which was his most recent, allowed 3 hits, no earned runs at San Diego, struck out 5 over 4 2/3. It was a better performance than the bulk relief. In his first appearance, that was a mess. We talked about him, I think it was opening day. Inning and 2/3, struck out 1, walked 2, allowed 6 earned on 5 hits to 12 hitters against the Rangers. Kind of an unfair spot. The second time in bulk relief, he faced the Rockies, gave up 3 hits, worked 4 innings, allowed a run, but only 1, struck out 5 of 15 Rockies. I think that one, as much as we'll discount the Rangers spot, I think we discount the Rockies spot as well and just kind of consider that Padres is what we're looking at here. And that one wasn't bad against a fairly effective Padres lineup. I just think that this Diamondbacks lineup might be a little bit better than that Padres lineup. And I think they're very good at limiting strikeouts. It's kind of a tough spot, especially if we're not sure we're getting even 5 innings. He worked into the 5th in that start, which is encouraging, but didn't finish the 5th. If he gets in trouble, if he's coming back around to the top of the lineup, I definitely could see a quick hook for Chicago here, especially in a game that, very early in the season, they would want to win against another competitive NL team. It's a little dicey, but you can see the quality, 25.6% strikeouts. The ERA, you can ignore. A 3.92 xFIP is allowed a couple of homers and a lot of power. Premium contact is ugly. 17.9% barrels is rough. 96.3 miles an hour of exit velocity is rough. 64.3% hard hits is pretty bad. You could probably tell that I hadn't noticed the 96.3 miles an hour of exit velo. Yeah, I'm going to take Ben Brown off my list. FanDuel, I just wouldn't play him because we're not getting the quality start there, and he projects pretty low. It was DraftKings where I was thinking about it. But again, I think he just falls off the... he is projected higher than the Stripling play. But I think given the quality of the opponent, I think he probably falls off the board a little bit. And if you're feeding up those kind of gopher balls to Corbin Carroll, Ketel Marte, Lourdes Gurriel, Christian Walker, Jock Peterson, Eugenio Suarez, one of those guys is going to go deep here. So probably not for Ben Brown. Maybe we target him a little bit with Diamondbacks bats. Kelly is an interesting proposition. Against the Cubbies, it's tough. Very good pitcher. Off to a strong start. 2.29 ERA and a 3.52 xFIP. 22.2% strikeouts, 5.6% walks so far. Over 177 and 2/3, 30 starts last year. 3.29 ERA, a 3.84 xFIP. 25.9% strikeouts. He's a good pitcher. I think the prices are justifiable. You can just see that the Chicago lineup diminishes it a little bit. 10K for 27 fantasy points is not correct. So given the matchup, I would include Kelly, but I wouldn't prioritize him. I think the guys above him here are bigger priorities, which is kind of logical. I think basically every time I would probably just opt to find $1,000 and pay for Tyler Glasnow. I think that much of the matchup difference here. But I will also say that a lot of the time, talent on the mound overcomes talent in the lineup, and we could easily see Merrill Kelly succeed given his upside to the point where he could win the slate. So don't scratch him out. Don't take him off your list. Include him in your player pool and in lineup builds, and if you get to good constructions with him, absolutely you can fire away for some Kelly shares. I just don't love the spot for him. See if we got any of these lineups. Diamondbacks is in. No Blaze Alexander. We get Kevin Newman instead. Cubby's not posted yet. Or actually, maybe it's on Underdog. Not yet up there. 5:21. We're doing fine on time. If you're looking for updates, they'll be posted as soon as the show's over. Everything is free up on rotoscouts.com. Projections, home run picks, top stacks, power index. Full breakdown article of every one of these games, saying a lot of the same things I'm saying now, and probably a easier to understand kind of a pace and cadence, a little less rambly. Devin always likes Arizona, especially the lefties. Devin's been on point for a lot of these calls early in the season. Good guy to pay attention to in the chat, I would say, gang. Andy Melliman, LOL, it is high, it is far, it is foul. A lot of those from Sterling over the years. Just loves to get into that home run cadence early and have his silly nicknames and everything. And yeah, something that like even the fans in Yankee Stadium, which is just terrible for leaping out of their seats on a can of corn behind second base, even the fans in Yankee Stadium sometimes would know. And Sterling would be doing that. It is high. It is far. It is caught 30 feet in front of the warning track. Thought that one was gone, Susan. He'll be missed, though, as I said. So, D-backs, basically the expected form of the lineup, except Kevin Newman is a downgrade from Blaze Alexander, who's off to a nice start to his career here in the bottom of the lineup. But Newman, a moderately capable hit tool over the years, but not a lot to really like. Off to a 250, 308, 333 start in 13 plate appearances, and we're very proud of him. It's the top of the lineup that we really want here. Ketel Marte, 3 home runs to start the year, a stolen base, a 124 WRC+, 222 ISO, premium second base option for $36.55. You get these guys a little bit cheaper than you get the Braves. They're a little bit less talented across the board, but it's a similar like top end positionally and you know with what you'd want. Corbin Carroll, 5,700, 3,800. A little bit cheap for his overall upside that we saw last year in that outrageous season. 5 stolen bases already, 86 WRC plus and a .083 ISO. The power hasn't come through. The hit tool hasn't really come through yet. He's only struck out at a 7.2% rate so far, though, walking at a 13% clip. That doesn't bode well for Ben Brown. Neither does Ketel Marte at 15.3, 9.7, nor does Lourdes Gurriel at 14.5 and 7.2%, and off to a great start at 297, 348, 531 in the triple slash, a 234 ISO, 4 home runs, 136 WRC plus. This start is like the full version of Lourdes Gurriel. We've talked about him a couple times where it's, one year he traded all his power away, only hit 5 home runs, but slashed 291, 343, 400. Last year, he got his power back, but slashed 261, 309, 463. We're basically combining those and Voltroning it into a hell of a good player over 69 plate appearances so far. Christian Walker, a little bit underperformance. 3 home runs, a lot of it is good. Don't get me wrong. 300, 417, 467 is a great triple slash. 3 home runs is great. Just a 167 ISO is a little bit lower than I would want. Still creating runs 45% better than average, but striking out at a 27.8% clip when he's been 20-ish, sub 20 the last couple of years. A little bit too many strikeouts in the early goings. We're talking about 72 plate appearances. He'll be totally fine. And the triple slash is intact, so are the runs. Everything's fine. Just a couple little wonky things that I want corrected from a player that I really like, I guess is what I'm trying to say. 3,700 is correct on FanDuel. 51, a little bit cheap on DraftKings. Jock Peterson has not struck out yet this year. Is that correct? Jock Peterson hasn't struck out in 35 plate appearances? Hold on. Hold the phone. Can that possibly be correct? That appears to be correct. He also hasn't homered, which is what Jock Peterson does. Wow. That's a weird little statistical anomaly there. He's doubled twice. He's got 7 singles so far this season. Slashing 346, 471, 423 to start over 35 plate appearances. Walking at a 20% clip. I like the upside for Jock Peterson against Ben Brown here for a little bit of power, considering all of this. If we had anything resembling that, Jock is a decent bet for a home run. He's exactly halfway to the magic number. We're dealing with some estimation in the line. If I just gave the model this, These guys would all be in like the 50s. So it's, you got to balance these rookies. But I like the spot for Jock. 3,900, 2,600 in the outfield makes for a really good fifth man to help average that down. That makes that stack 5,100 apiece. Saves you a little bit of money on Corbin Carroll. On FanDuel, it makes him 3,400 apiece. You get the same effect to a lesser degree from Eugenio Suarez, who's down to 259, 313, 414, 2 home runs, 155 ISO, 97 WRC plus. He'll bounce back and forth. The power should be there in the end. We'll see 25 to 30 home runs. Probably a decent WRC plus, a good ISO, but everything else will be pretty awful. Gabriel Moreno, fairly cheap at 41, definitely cheap at 24. Premium catcher bat, 256, 347, 372 to start the season. Below average for run creation, but easy enough to go to for a catcher talent. McCarthy and Newman kind of afterthoughts at the bottom of the lineup. If you do want to stack the Cubs against Merrill Kelly, I do think they're in play. It's just probably more of an evening out kind of a situation where Kelly's talent beats them primarily, but maybe they scratch out a few runs, get some guys on base, score 3 or 4 against them, but they're not premium for DFS. That said, I like Ian Happ, Seiya Suzuki, Chris Morel for a little bit of power upside, Dansby at shortstop for just too cheap, 4,300, 3,100, given who Dansby Swanson's been throughout his entire career. That's just cheap. He's got 2 home runs already this season, a 189 ISO. He's creating runs 7% better than average. It's a very good shortstop option for a cheap price. Bottom of the lineup, you get Nico, you get Mike Tauchman, you get Miguel Amaya, all somewhat capable players out to slower starts this year. 75, 98, and 83 WRC plus. But you've also got Mike Bush hiding there, or maybe not hiding. 3,400 on DraftKings is very cheap. 3,000 on FanDuel is pretty cheap. First and third base eligible on FanDuel. Off to a 327, 393, 694 start. He's got 5 home runs. I think he's got 4 on 4 consecutive days over the weekend. 184 WRC plus to start the season from a kid who they expected to hit. That's pretty good signs early. Last year in just 81 plate appearances, hit 2 home runs, had a 125 ISO and a 49 WRC plus and a cup of coffee. Happ gets on base. Suzuki gets on base and hits for power. Happ has more power than 0 home runs and a .086 ISO. He hit, 21 last year? Cody Bellinger off to a rough start in the triple slash, but still not striking out much, walking at an okay clip. Not getting on base as much as he needs to because he's not really hitting anything. 2 home runs, a 46 WRC plus. I like him to come around. I don't think we're back to tragic lost Cody Bellinger yet. Morel for just 43.35. The FanDuel price is probably correct. The DraftKings price is low. Love the premium contact from Chris Morel over time. A lot of strikeouts last year, just 17.7% this year. This will probably go back that direction. 3 home runs already, a 203 ISO. So there's some playable bats on Chicago, but again, I feel like it just lands somewhere in the middle where you didn't really want the Chicago side, but they maybe scratch out a few runs against Kelly, take him down from an otherwise against, it's another spot where against 20 other teams, Merrill Kelly would project into the 30s on the FanDuel scale, above 15 on DraftKings. But I like the Cubbies to maybe knock him down a peg. So Kelly, yes, but with some questions. Cubbies, sure, but with some questions. Ben Brown is a no for me on both sites, and the Diamondbacks are a pretty strong yes for me on both sites. Joker's here, he agrees. The Reds and the Mariners. Oh, God, yeah, that Varsho trade was awful. Just awful to the point where it set them back if you look at this year's lineup. Like, just how much, much better they would be with Moreno and Gurriel in there. Those 2 guys straight up for Varsho was a bad deal when they made it, and then Varsho fell off the face of the earth, and those 2 guys have been pretty good. So, yeah, don't like that one at all for Toronto. I'd be lamenting that one if I was a Toronto fan myself. Both of these lineups are in. I think we got 2 playable pitchers in this one. I don't really trust Frankie Montas, but he's had success over time and is in a very strong-looking spot. The Mariners strike out at a ridiculous clip to start the season, and they have not been good at all. Take a look at the confirmed lineup. Oh, that's right. This kid's a rookie. Forgot to mention him in the article. Jonathan Classy? Jonathan Classy? Not sure how to say that name. We'll call him John for the moment. Dead minimum price on the DraftKings slate. He's kind of interesting. He's got a world of speed and the ability to get on base with maybe a little bit of power. 80 grade speed says a lot on the 2080 scale, obviously. 489 plate appearances in Double-A ball last year. He hit 13 home runs, stole 62 bases, struck out at a 28% clip, but walked 13.1% of the time. 222, 331, 396. In 499 plate appearances in A-ball in 2022, he stole 55 bases, also hit 13 home runs that year, also a 13% walk rate, 26.7% strikeout rate, which is effectively the same as 28%, 267, 373, 463 in that sample. Has 3 stolen bases and 2 home runs in 53 plate appearances at AAA this year. The same 13.2% walk rate. Limited strikeouts a little bit more effectively, 22.6% in the tiny sample, was slashing 311, 396, 622 with a 144 WRC plus and a 311 ISO in the 53 plate appearances at AAA. So a somewhat, he's not like crazy high ranked in all of baseball, but organizationally an interesting prospect with definitely for DFS purposes, some raw skills at the plate. So on DraftKings for the dead min, Jonathan Class is kind of interesting. Also a switch hitter, which is good. Just since I'm here. Oh, that's right. These are all the guys we got to add. Cincinnati, Seattle, Cincinnati. There he is. So, yeah, middling kind of a projection, but obviously a good value mark for the dead min. Makes him intriguing on DraftKings. You could definitely take him and wrap him back around to the top of that lineup if you're compelled to go to this team. The issues with the Mariners right now, outside of Josh Rojas, who's at 346, 414, 385 with a 144 WRC plus to start his season, and a little bit of Mitch Haniger, 264, 350, 415 for Mitch, 129 WRC plus with 2 homers. Nice to see there. Everybody else, and Ty France at 280. But 5 now of these hitters are below the Mendoza line. I don't like to talk about batting average basically ever. But when you got 5 guys in your lineup that are 5 of your regulars and they're all hitting below 200, that's not good. When that same 5-man group is getting on base at just a 238 clip, and this was worse in the previous version of the lineup. There was somebody else in here. It was 7 guys. But a 238 clip for that 5-man group that includes their superstar, their leadoff hitter, and their 3-hitter. That's not good. That's why this team isn't very good right now. Julio Rodriguez. 5,000 is cheap. 3,100 is cheap, but he's got no home runs, 2 steals, a .017 ISO, a 34 WRC plus, 186, 238, 203. He's been lost to start the season. J.P. Crawford getting on at a 261 clip. He was at 380 last year. If he's not getting on base, he's not all that useful for 3,700, 2,800 at shortstop. Jorge Polanco, 4,100, 2,500. 2 home runs, 196, 318, 304. 11% worse than average grading runs with no real power to speak of right now. Might just never get back to that old version of Jorge Polanco. France is just a slap hitter, an average hitter. A little bit more than a slap hitter. Like he hits the ball with a little bit more authority than the Jeff McNeils of the world. But like a bat on ball guy, not a power bat. 280, 308, 320 to start the season. An 87 WRC plus, a .04 ISO, 0 homers. Cal Raleigh's got tons of power. Luke Raley's got some power. Raleigh's a switch hitter. Luke Raley's a lefty. 36.7% strikeout rate for Cal Raleigh, 34.8% strikeout rate for Luke Raley with 0 home runs and a negative 19 WRC+. This is a targetable team that's just, you're paying a bit of matchup tax on Frankie Montas at $9,000 on both sites, but it's not the highest price on the board. You're getting a pitcher who does know how to find strikeouts against teams that'll give them to him. To start the season, 19.1% strikeouts, 2.16 ERA, a 3.85 xFIP is a little bit more telling. That's more who he is. First start of the year, struck out 4, allowed 0 earned runs on 4 hits against the Nationals over 6 innings. Second start, 5 2/3, faced 24 Phillies, allowed a home run on a solo homer, 5 hits, struck out 5 but walked 3. Then the most recent start only lasted 5 innings, struck out 4, walked 1, allowed 3 earned runs on and 5 total runs on 6 hits against the Brewers. A little bit of bad luck baked into that one. He's a hittable pitcher against a good team, but he's also a capable pitcher against a bad one, and I lean Frankie Montas here. I also lean George Kirby here. Kirby could definitely benefit from the 26% strikeout rate in this confirmed version of the Reds lineup. You get Jonathan India, who is striking out at just 14.9% and walking at 19.4%, but otherwise just a 196, 275 on either end of his triple slash. 373 on base is great, but he's not doing much else. 89 WRC plus is pretty telling about the value of only getting on base. 0.078 ISO, no home runs, 2 steals. Will Benson, tremendous player, 2 home runs, 4 steals, a 280 ISO, a 120 WRC plus. Also a 33.9% strikeout rate, 31.3% last year. He knows how to draw a walk. 339 on base. It'll support that. It'll keep the WRC plus afloat a little bit. He's got power. He's got speed. I really like Will Benson. But he's going up against a really tough pitcher who takes walks away. Say what you want about George Kirby, but he does not walk anybody. So could be problematic for guys who are relying on some walks here. Christian Encarnacion Strand got on track. Home run over the weekend as the home run pick yesterday, I want to say. 2 on the season, just 185, 191, 308. Really rough start. But I'm like the Reds. They keep rolling him out here in the 3 spot in the lineup. That's just his spot now. And I'm considering him just a very capable power bat. Right-handed hitter, 4,100, 3,100, 7.24 to lead the team in the home run model today. Love the upside for Encarnacion Strand on most slates, but a bad matchup for him against George Kirby. Kirby not giving up too many home runs so far this year. Not many last year, not many the year before that to go in along with his lack of walks. Spencer Steer has been terrific to start the season. 5,500, 3,800. He's correctly priced probably. 346, 477, 673 over 65 plate appearances. Outrageous start to the season. 3 homers, 3 steals, a 200 WRC plus, so he's been 100% better than league average for run creation. A 327 ISO. It's an incredibly small sample. 65 plate appearances is basically meaningless, but it's nice to see the strong start for a player that, we liked coming into the season. Last year, 23 homers, 15 stolen bases. Not bad. Jake Fraley, a little bit of lefty pop, 5.49. Hasn't hit a home run yet, but has been effective at 424, 457, 515, creating runs 63% better than average, stolen 4 bases, and we know there's a little bit of lurking power there from the left side. He hit 15 home runs in 380 plate appearances last year. Contact profile, not great, but is one of those players that doesn't need to be barreling the ball all the time to hit a few home runs. Ellie De La Cruz is crazy expensive for a 6-hitter, 5,600, 4,100. You don't see these prices in this spot in the lineup all that often, but Ellie probably needs to be priced here given the ridiculous upside on any given slate. Still some issues at the plate for sure. 33.9% strikeout needs to be wrangled, but when he makes contact, he destroys the ball. And when he gets on base, he steals bases. 6 steals on the season already. 4 home runs, including that ridiculous inside the Parker. 286, 355, 607, a 321 ISO, creating runs 50% better than average. This is the good side of Ellie De La Cruz. Hopefully he just maintains that through the year and the strikeouts aren't an issue. Jimmer Candelario for just 3,900, 2,700. Kind of interesting, but just out to a bad 182, 246, 327 start. 49% worse than average creating runs. I like him to find his form and hit some home runs for this team, but another strikeout target, 32.8% so far this season. 22% last year is a whole hell of a lot better, but hasn't been great for strikeouts so far this year. Nick Martini, a little bit of power from the left side, 3 home runs, 290, 303, 677. Pretty good start to the year, but 30.3% strikeouts and no walks from him. And then Tyler Stevenson is a moderately playable catcher. All of that just feeds the upside for me for George Kirby. I love the price at 8,600, 8,900 across sites. I'll just target this Reds team for strikeouts and ride Kirby's quality. Last year, 3.35 ERA, a 3.63 xFIP with a 22.7% strikeout rate, over 190 and 2/3 in 31 starts, and he walked 2.5% of hitters. Year before that, walked 4.1%, 3.39 ERA with a 3.33 xFIP. A little bit better in the strikeout department, 24.5%. He's not bad for swinging strikes though, basically 11% last year. Kirby's a really talented pitcher. Just hasn't been great to start this season. He station to station victim against that annoying Guardians team. In his second start of the year? I think this was his second start. 3 2/3 innings against the Guardians. 8 earned runs on 10 hits. Walked none. Allowed no home runs. Only struck out 2. They're a low strikeout bunch, but that's a Guardians game, right? That is just, annoying base hits. Probably some 2-strike counts in there. And just got victimized on some base hits. Just an annoying game. In his third start, 4 innings. Not much better. Only 3 strikeouts against 20 Blue Jays hitters. Gave up 5 runs on 8 hits. Did give up a home run in that one. First start of the year was his best one. 6 2/3 against the Red Sox. No runs on just 2 hits. Did I not document that? Oh, struck out 8 in that one. That's the George Kirby I know. That's the George Kirby I'm looking for here. I think the projection is totally correct. I think the price is a little bit low. So I really like the spot when it comes with some strikeout upside. If I roster a ton of George Kirby, I would definitely consider some Reds hedge stacks on the other side. Probably be like 1, 2, 3. It'd probably be a straight line. Those 5 guys. You can include, if you build a lot, you should include some India. You can include some Candelario, maybe some Nick Martini. But these guys are the priority. I probably wouldn't stack the Mariners. They've just been so bad. Not that that's predictive in any way. Not that I hate some of these bats. Julio obviously is a star. I totally believe in Julio to bounce back from this terrible start. He had a bad start last year and finished with 32 homers, 37 steals, 275, 333, 485, a 126 WRC plus in his second season. First year in the league, 28 homers, 25 steals, and a killer rookie season. So Julio's going to bounce back, and you want to be early on these things, but everything in this lineup all at the same time has been terrible. I like the Frankie Montas side, as uncomfortable as that might be. So on both sides, it's the pitchers. I like Kirby better for the discounted price, the better projection, and the better matchup. Well, no, it's probably not the better matchup. Reds are a better team right now than the Mariners. But I still like Kirby better because he's cheaper and he's got a better projection and a lot of upside. Frankie Montas, I'm not as comfortable with, but I love the matchup. The price is probably right at $9,000. You're paying probably a little bit of matchup tax. Last game up. Still a bunch of people here hanging out. Love it. Hit the like button for me if you get a chance. If you haven't done that already, subscribe so you hear when these shows go live. A little bit variable. I usually try and get on 3:30, but sometimes we trickle into the 4 o'clock hour, and we always go a little bit long. 5:44, we've been talking for 2 hours and change. Yeah, Blue Jays, as Monty and could be Travis are talking about, we're just desperate for lefty bats. That's why they got Kevin Biggio hitting 5th right now. Devin says Seattle striking out 31.5% of the time as a team to start the year against righties. Not ideal, not in a non-hitter friendly park. Yeah, that's the other thing in that ballpark, just a pitcher friendly ballpark. So benefits both sides. Like the pitching on both sides. And then there's Tyler Glasnow. You could just take 150 shares and give them to Tyler Glasnow for $11,000 a piece and put together some bats underneath that and probably be okay here. Killer spot for Glasnow against the Nationals. Nats striking out at 24.4% clip over the start of the season. Only Jesse Winker below 20% so far in this projected version of the lineup. Let me see if we've got the confirm, but it'll probably look something like this. Doesn't look like we've got it yet. Devin probably has the split handy, but they're going up against Tyler Glasnow, so splits be damned. and they're better typically against left-handed pitching. Glasnow, 32.2% strikeout rate over his first 4 starts, 24 innings, a 2.25 ERA, a 2.94 xFIP, 0.75 WHIP, a 15.3% swinging strike rate, which is elite, 31.2% CSW, right on track with where he's supposed to be, looking like Tyler Glasnow on the mound. Last year in 120 innings, 33.5% strikeouts, 3.53, 2.75 in the ERA and xFIP department. Just 6 2/3 in 2 starts in 2022 before going down for the season. Devin says splits to be damned indeed. Yeah. You just target the Nationals with a pitcher like Tyler Glasnow. Pay the full freight at $11,000. He projects way above everybody else on this slate. He could get got, absolutely. Nats could get to him. Lane Thomas is surging a little bit. Jesse Winker's off to a great start for his comeback. Such a good start that I was able to trade him over the weekend with 3 years left on his contract in the 10th round for a $28 salary against our $400 cap. Jesse Winker and James Outman for Ha-Sung Kim because I need some speed and I needed a middle infielder. And then DL Hall, who was supposed to be just throw him in, I'm going to cut him to open up a roster spot. But then I realized I could send him down to our minor league system and leave him down there. So I did that instead. I could lose that deal because I do very much believe in Jesse Winker, but getting out of that contract had its value for me. But I like Jesse Winker's bat. I said it before on a show. If I can find it quick enough, I'll read it out. Between his good years before he got traded to Seattle and just had a lost year in what we were just talking about as a pitcher-friendly park, and then was injured for basically all of last season, Jesse Winker, combining the 2020 short 60-game season and 2021, basically had a full year, 668 plate appearances. He had 36 home runs and a 945 OPS. In the 2021 season by itself, he slashed 305, 394, 556 with a 949 OPS that year. Jesse Winker is a tremendous left-handed hitter when he's healthy and going right. He's just been missing in action for 2 years. So 2,800, 2,700, in a lot of other matchups, I'd be talking a little bit about Jesse Winker against a righty. Not in this spot, but if Glasnow gets nailed by this team, it'll probably be a little bit of CJ, a little bit of surging Lane Thomas, and some Jesse Winker getting involved, and then maybe our guy Joey Gallo doing his thing. But those are the guys I would be focused on if you choose to be really, really contrarian for probably unnecessary reasons and go to this team. CJ Abrams against a righty is definitely playable. This team's best player, however you want to put it. 3 home runs, 3 stolen bases, a 146 WRC plus to start the year. Thomas, again, out to a slow start, but 2 home runs, 7 steals now, and rounding into form. Joey Meneses has been bad. 204, 298, 224. Total lack of power from him. If he's not hitting for average, getting on base, he's useless. Joey Gallo is a positional conflict anyway, and at a cheaper price. Joey, for as useless as that might look in comparison, he's got a lower on base. He's got a significantly lower batting average. Much better slug. Way better ISO. Creating runs 16% worse than average now that he's out to 60 plate appearances is not great, but it's significantly better than Joey Meneses has been. So again, batting average in a lot of ways doesn't really matter. But Joey Gallo needs to get his shit together here. 41.7% strikeouts. We're on our way back to these kind of numbers from last year. These are quicker to normalize than a lot of stats. Strikeout rates and walk rates. We still need more plate appearances overall, but as we always say with Joey, he destroys the ball when he makes contact, and he's very, very cheap. Eddie Rosario's been bad. Riley Adams is really only good against lefties. Luis Garcia is an afterthought, so is Trey Lipscomb, and they're facing Tyler Glasnow. Just fire away with Glasnow. Even if it doesn't work, it was the right move. Dodgers off the top, going up against Mitchell Parker, who is another pitcher making a debut performance today. 4,000 on the DraftKings slate. I wouldn't do it. We've talked about these situations before. Maybe if he was facing like the White Sox, you can get away with that. Maybe if he was, what's a good team that he could be facing? Even if he was facing like, let's say the Reds with all their strikeouts, but a good team with some exciting players and some talent and everything. Maybe even there, you could justify it. 4,000. Hey, I'm gonna just buy a free square, see if I can find some strikeouts. On a crazy day, maybe he finds me some strikeouts and a win bonus, but I doubt it. This is the Dodgers. This is not the spot to play that game. I get what 4,000 in a pitcher spot does for you on DraftKings. I really do. I promise. It doesn't do that when he goes negative. And there's a really strong chance of this kid going out and putting up a negative score today. You're talking about a Dodgers team that on the top end, a 16.7% strikeout rate, an 11.4% walk rate, ridiculous power, ridiculous consistency, ridiculous run creation. Just get your value elsewhere. It's just not worth it here. Maybe other sites are saying go play it. Maybe it sims out great in other people's models. I have no faith. Mitchell Parker and the Dodgers, again, are minus 360 favorites with like a 5.6 something implied total. 113 and 2/3 innings in Double-A last year. 4.20 ERA, a 3.80 xFIP. 27.2% strikeout rate. Not bad. Playable numbers against mortal teams, but that was in Double-A. He also walked 11.1% in Double-A. You're going to throw that at this Dodgers lineup? Nope. Not me. Wouldn't do it. Not at 4,000. FanDuel, you don't have to worry about it. He's not on the slate. Fire away with Dodgers bats. They're going to draw some walks. They're going to score some runs. It comes down to whether or not for the very high prices, do they hit a couple of home runs? God damn it. I always forget to do the Bill Smith thing. Again, as much as I already liked Will Smith, the catcher, for his Jurickson Profar quote that I'll refer to for the rest of time, I like him even more. He's our guy now. 4,500 on DraftKings, 3,100, plays every damn day, 68 plate appearances on the season, 371, 412, 484. A tremendous start to the season for the catcher, 144 WRC plus. He's got a home run on the board. He's a very, very good hitter, just 14.7% strikeouts this year, 16.1% with an 11.4% walk rate last year. 2 years ago, 10.3% barrels, 43% hard hits. That season, he hit 24 home runs in 578 plate appearances, 205 ISO, 127 WRC plus. Power dipped a little bit last year over 554 plate appearances, but a 119 WRC plus, 177 ISO, hit 19 home runs in amongst all this quality. Definitely an excellent option. Catcher who gets on base at a 359 clip, hits for average, doesn't strike out, hits for power. And he comes fairly cheap, 3,100. Play him like he's a first baseman on FanDuel. 4,500 he is a $5,000 catcher on DraftKings. What are we doing? That's just silly. He is too cheap on DraftKings. That's an interesting one-off on DraftKings. Teoscar, Max Muncy, killer righty-lefty power combo for 4,900 and 4,500 on DK, 35-34. Their relative pricing on DraftKings is cheaper than their FanDuel pricing. They're bargains over there. 8.5 and 8.3 in the home run model. Teoscar's got 5 on the season. Muncy's got 4. 261 ISO and a 246 ISO. 135 WRC plus, 122 WRC plus. Last year, double-digit barrel rates and well into the double digits for both guys. Good 40%, pushing 50% for Teoscar. Hard hit rates. Those guys are excellent. On FanDuel, if this is the confirmed version that we get of the Dodgers lineup, I love this bottom end. I'm not totally excited that it's Enrique Hernandez, Chris Taylor, and Miguel Rojas making that up, especially not with the weak starts that Hernandez and Taylor are off to. But the fact that you could potentially get 3 bats for the low 2,000s to round off the Dodgers lineup, and all 3 of them have triple position eligibility, it makes them really flexible. It averages down the prices of these guys through the middle who are already cheap if you're stacking them that way. It averages down the prices of these guys if you're going that way. And you can fit them again at 3 positions. Mookie down to just 2, second base and shortstop. But there's a lot of flexibility and some discounted pricing in the Dodgers lineup today. Interesting value. It's a little bit less defined on the DraftKings slate. For one, Enrique Hernandez is an outfielder, so is Chris Taylor, with no multi-position eligibility, which quite honestly makes no sense for either of those guys. Miguel Rojas is only a shortstop for 3,300, which is probably too high a price. He does have 2 home runs on the season, a 113 WRC plus in 20 plate appearances, where Enrique and Chris Taylor have been pretty inept. 25 WRC plus for Hernandez, 27. Is that negative 27? something on my screen. Yep, negative 27 for Chris Taylor. 0.031, 162, 0.031 with a 0 ISO. Not a great start for Taylor, but last year was okay. 15 homers, 16 steals. That's what we really need for the cheap pricing, the multi-position upside. I'd like a better batting average, but he gets on base at an okay clip. Creator runs positively. 10 homers, 10 steals in 454 plate appearances the year before that, but was below average for run creation. But Taylor, out of all three of these guys, Taylor's probably my choice most of the time. But you can get away with either of the others as well. So, Tyler Glasnow, gigantic yes. Dodgers bats, gigantic yes, all the way at the top, and would go 1 through 9 with this team in various combinations since they're letting you do it, particularly on FanDuel. Nationals bats, really it's a pretty strong no. It would be probably the most contrarian spot on the slate if you just like being contrarian for contrarian's sake. And I would go like 1, 2, 3. I would go all three of those lefty bats, and then I would include Lane Thomas in with them. And then I would thank this team for its efforts. It's really like, yeah, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know that I want to go beyond that. Maybe it's a 3 or a 4 man. And you just get creative with your stack. I guess if I had to, if Larry C was here holding a knife to my throat, telling me he'd cut if I didn't play a 5th Nationals player, I'd probably go Eddie Rosario. If this is the lineup. It's off to a terrible start. 121, 118, 242. It's facing Tyler Glasnow. 1 home run on the board. A negative 10 WRC plus. Last year he hit 20 home runs, 21 home runs for the Braves. 255, 305, 450. 195 ISO, exactly at league average for run creation. Year before, just 270 plate appearances. Was pretty bad that season. You want to go deep? We can go deep. Let's talk about Eddie Rosario from multiple years ago. Is that it? We have more sample than that for Eddie Rosario, don't we? Was I on the wrong line? I was. There it is. I was like, wait a minute. 412 plate appearances in 2021. He hit 14 home runs, 177 ISO, 98 WRC plus. 13 home runs in the short 2020 season. Not bad that year. 219 ISO, 110 WRC plus. 13 homers in 231 plate appearances in just 60 games. And then that was the good year I was looking for. 32 homers in 590 back then. That's all the way back to 2019, which I'll remind you is now 5 years ago, which is friggin' crazy. Anyway, all that was to say, you probably don't want a 5th man from the Nationals. You probably don't want one guy from the Nationals here. You're playing Tyler Glasnow. Now we got to scroll all the way over here to get to the pitcher board. So to take one summary look at this, let me zip these up so it's more centered for you. Take a look at the pitcher board to summarize things. Glasnow, monster yes. Nationals not really in play. George Kirby, pretty big yes. I love him at the price. I like the projections. I like him for additional strikeout upside against Cincinnati. And I like him to take away the walks from Cincinnati from their upside. So a little bit diminished on base. That said, if you're rostering a bunch of George Kirby, grab a few hedge stacks of Cincinnati. Sonny Gray, big yes against the Athletics on DraftKings at 85, where I think the win and the with 5 innings and the win is in play. On FanDuel at 97, it's a much bigger ask because I don't think you're getting 6. I don't think you're getting the quality start. And I do think you're getting that from several of these other options. Seth Lugo, you're paying a matchup tax at 96 for Seth Lugo, but I still like the spot against the just dead White Sox lineup. 8,400 on DraftKings. I think he's very, very playable from that tier. Frankie Montas, with all the strikeout upside going up against Seattle and their just basic inability to score runs so far this season. I like that spot. 9,000 on both sides. I wasn't totally sure I would ever play Frankie Montas again for DFS, but I think I'll have some shares today. Joe Musgrove, I like it. 8,300, especially on FanDuel. I think there's tons and tons of upside available there. Going up against a middle-of-the-road Milwaukee lineup, 8,600 on the other side on DraftKings. I think he's in play there, but I like it better for 83 on FanDuel. Merrill Kelly, tough ask at the price at 10,000 on the FanDuel slate, but definitely in play for some shares, just not the best spot matchup-wise. 9,400. He and Chris Bassett comp fairly well, and, The Yankees are probably a worse matchup for Bassett, but the significant discount on either side makes Bassett a little bit more appealing. Luis Gil on the other side of that game, little strikeout upside against a very short, shallow Toronto lineup that has underperformed the start of the season. Luis Gil is kind of interesting, especially at 7,400 on DraftKings. Joe Ross, I think not off the board. Could have one of those weird Joe Ross days. Basically every other day from Joe Ross is pretty messy, and he's going up against an interesting San Diego lineup. I would definitely both sides that situation, but him and Luis Gil are the top two probably value guys on the board. Ben Brown's a tough ask against Arizona. Martin Perez, I think, is in play against the Mets, but not really value priced. I'd rather have either of these two guys, I think, for value. But wouldn't totally shock me if Perez paid that off. Adrian Hauser, I don't really love. You might get away with it at 65 if you're really looking bargain bin on DraftKings. And then from that same price tier is Ross Stripling, who is the cheapest guy that I would possibly consider. I don't think he's at all playable on FanDuel. Maybe on DraftKings, but I greatly prefer the St. Louis side of that, and I plan on stacking St. Louis. I wouldn't play either of these pitchers, and I will play aggressively both of those offenses, Atlanta and Houston. I would not play Mitchell Parker against the Dodgers, even for 4,000 on DraftKings. Just don't think it's going to work. Think you go negative. Home run board. Jordan standing tall at the top, but there's my Nolan Gorman call. So you can see I don't go to the top of the board every day. I don't go to the most obvious names on the board every day. I like Gorman for that home run. He's cheap. Good matchup. Shohei Ohtani, Matt Olson, Pete Alonso, Aaron Judge. A lot of familiar names. Tatis, you can't really see it. The FanDuel price, you can see a little bit how effective it is compared to some of the other star caliber players. The DraftKings, I think, price is a little bit more exaggerated for that. But I like the spot for Fernando Tatis to succeed, and a little bit cheaper than some of the other stars. If you're just, I've got a lot of money and I want to one-off a star into my lineup. It's one to keep in mind. Several Braves, if we're looking for power stacks. Some other cards. I think the Cards were the top of the power index. It's on the site. But 3 guys over the magic number for the uninitiated. We're looking for 10s as that guy's got a great spot to hit a home run today. 10's like the magic number. A lot of guys pushing up just below 10. So you get a little bit of life out of Houston with both of these guys. And then Altuve not far behind. Atlanta just always dominates this, though. There's a 5-man Atlanta stack between 12.69 and 9.24 in the home run model, where 10 is the magic number. It's pretty good. Yanks, no Stanton today, so you lose a power bat from the Yanks. You get Judgy up there, though. Soto right here. I think that's it, gang. I think we've said what needs to be said about this one. A lot of lineup updating to do. Keep an eye on the website. See if there's any questions here. Travis Wyndham calling for the Trent Grisham home run. Dennis Forgy putting on his brown underwear and playing Ben. Bear in mind as we say that Dennis Forgy is a Cubs fan. Let's see. What does Trent Grisham rate in the home run model? Trent Grisham, 4.24. Not terrible. Bassett's gettable for power for sure. Has not hit the ball yet this season. He's been on base, though, so I guess he's drawn a walk. Yeah, drawn over 10 plate appearances. He's a 10% walk rate. That means he's been walked once. Negative 60 WRC plus. In previous seasons last year, 13 homers in 555 with a 154 ISO. Year before that, 17 homers in 524 with a 157. Definitely not my favorite power bat on this Yankees team. Austin Wells a little higher than him in the spot before that. Ranks out better than Verdugo or Osvaldo. I'll give him that much. I would say Trent Grisham, not completely dead at the bottom of the lineup if you're thinking about him as a wraparound play. He should be cheaper probably on DraftKings. 2,100 on FanDuel is what caught my eye. That's a little bit interesting. If I can wrap that 2,100 into these 3 guys, it's not awful. The thing about that, though, is if I'm just looking to lower these three guys' salary, I'll just play one of these two. It just becomes easy when Rizzo's 27 and Gleyber's 28. Like, those are guys I actually want to play. So I just wouldn't go to Trent Grisham that often. Across like 150 Yankee stacks, then you're talking. You can get to some Trent Grisham, but it's top end only for the Yanks, really. But not completely crazy to think that maybe he homers. He's rating due, says Travis. David S., how much consideration do you put into batting order when building a cash or GPP stack? Quite a bit in terms of, the typical construction for a lineup is going to be your best several hitters are in your top four spots, right? We know that. I'm not sure how familiar anybody is with baseball or not. So you can start there. Top of the lineup, more talent, usually higher prices. So when actually constructing the stack, I consider that. I consider any like outlier lineup changes or movement. A guy who's typically a 9 hitter all of a sudden is hitting third. Typically is going to feed you a value price. Might be a guy that people aren't as aware of. So I'm always looking for things like that. The thing I care about least, I think, is what do the gaps look like? All the optimizers give you the ability to set the minimum number of gaps. I only want consecutive guys, so I only want a straight line from Volpe to Gleyber Torres. I only want a straight line from Anthony Rizzo to Austin Wells. If you leave one gap, then it can go like Volpe, Judge, Torres, Cabrera, Grisham, and leave one gap in between each guy. 2 gaps, obviously, can jump a little bit more. But it's all about just what combinations you can get to there. And if you're just skipping spots down the lineup, like if you go Volpe, Soto, Judge. All right, let me make that Soto, Judge, Rizzo. 2, 3, 4. And then you go, you could go Verdugo, Wells, and that all connects together nicely. But you could skip down to make the point all the way to Wells. You skip Torres, Verdugo, and Cabrera. If Rizzo gets to second base, let's say Anthony Rizzo leadoff double to start an inning from the 4 spot. Torres draws a walk, but Verdugo and Cabrera are out. Austin Wells is still up with Anthony Rizzo on base. There's 2 outs now. It's a worse situation. It's not ideal sequencing, but he still comes up. So there's still connection there between the 8 spot and the 4 hitter. So I'm not really that worried. Like, the happenstance of baseball tends to take care of the gaps question anyway. And then Wells wraps back around to the top end. So if I've got Wells in the 8th spot and he gets on base, let's say he doubles, drives in Rizzo and whoever the hell I said, Torres. Well, now you get credit for the RBI. Maybe you didn't have Torres in the stack, but you had Rizzo, so you score his run into your stack. You score the RBI, the doubles from both Wells and Rizzo. And now Wells is on. Let's say Trent Grisham manages to do something, and now we're back to the top of the lineup with some guys that we've stacked and some of their best hitters again. So I don't really sweat the, I can't play that guy with this guy of it. I'll consider it. I'll always look at it. And yeah, when guys are closer together, they correlate a little bit better. The 2-hitter tends to get driven in by the 3-hitter more frequently than he does the 8-hitter, let's say. And going from 1 down to 9, I realize I can't touch the screen and have you guys see what I'm saying. Going down from this guy isn't going to get driven in by that guy, but that guy can wrap back around and get driven in by that guy. So it works. You just got to consider the directionality of how the lineups work. Good. I was hoping that made sense. I never know as I start rambling about these things whether it comes out on the other side correctly, but I'm glad that makes sense. With that in mind, guys, 6:09, we should probably punch out and get some lineups updated. 2 hours and nearly 40 minutes here. Appreciate all you guys who are still here hanging out, listening to me. Let me get those updates in, get some lineups built for tonight. Hit the like button, subscribe, jump into the Discord, all those fun things. Good luck out there. Oh, check out acemind.io for all your sims, your optimizer needs. Promo code rotoscouts get you 20% off your first month on top of their free 3-day trial. acemind.io. Those guys rock. Good luck out there. Somebody go win something. We'll be back at this tomorrow. See ya.